Okay, good. I made it in the right live. Sorry I'm a few minutes late. I had to get some more coffee. It's been a long day, but I went to the doctor and then had to stop at a few different stores to get different things, food related items and whatnot that we needed. And then we had dinner and had Jamie's cake, happy birthday, all that stuff. Got the kids all situated. Their track meets are far away. I mean, it's like crazy now. Tomorrow's is pretty far away, and then the day after that is like almost 2 hours each way, so it's crazy. But what are you gonna do? So anyway, what was I gonna say? So another Family Annihilation. I don't know how I could see a thought crossing someone's mind, but coming down to killing your own children, your spouse, and your pets, thinking that that's the only answer for whatever problem that's temporary, that will pass, like everything. Hi, Julie W. It's happening so much. But another family, and what happened was one of them didn't show up for work Sunday morning, and that led to a welfare check, and the welfare check found 2 adults, 2 children, 3 dogs, all shot to death. And it was in Romeoville, Illinois. So, just brutal stuff. I don't. Yeah, well, let's see what's unfolded in this case that we know so far, because there was, first they weren't releasing names, and then let's see what we got. They were nice people. They didn't bother anyone. Okay, so this was the house. And let's see. Neighbors were grappling Monday with the weekend murders, annihilation of a family of 4, described as a mom and dad and a couple of kids who kept to themselves. As police in far southwest suburban Romeoville tried to find out who shot the 4 and killed their 3 dogs, the police were called to perform a wellness check at the home, which was the 500 block of Concord Avenue, Sunday, after a member of the family didn't show up for work or respond to phone calls from relatives throughout the day. When they arrived, officers found RobertoRolon and Zoraida Bartolomei and their 2 children, all dead. 3 dogs were also found deceased. Lynn Phillips, who lives one door down from the family, said, "This is devastating. I've been crying on and off all day." She didn't know them well, but she said the family was always cordial to her. It was a mom and dad and a couple of kids. The parents would be outside working in the yard, and we'd wave hi and bye, that kind of thing. Nothing unusual. We all keep to ourselves. Police say they do not believe the shooter is among the victims. Oh, wait a second here now. Now they're saying they don't believe the shooter, so they don't believe the shooter is among the victims. This is something different. But they say there's nothing to worry about. Well, who's the shooter then? Due to the time frame that has gone by, more than 18 hours from the time we were contacted, we are not asking anyone to shelter in place. We're not actively looking for anyone in the area. Police did not say whether they had leads on a subject. Wow. So the whole family's annihilated and they don't know who the shooter is. Well, that's scary. Well, I'm surprised. Something seems off with that, because we are deeply saddened by this tragedy and will do everything we can to support your child, said the school. The two children were... Something's off now. Okay, wait a second. Because I came home, Linda said something, I started to look at it, and when I first started to look at it, they didn't even have the people's names in there. And now they're saying they don't think the shooter is among the victims. But these neighbors are not... There's got to be something more. Was there forced entry? What? Something's weird here now. Now something's really weird. Because the time frame is more than 18 hours. They're not asking anyone to shelter in place. Was there forced... I'm really going to have to dive into this, because I thought one of the parents were the shooters. But whole family annihilated. And I don't know what the reason is that they think the shooter is not among the victims. Neighbors said the family just moved into the house a few months ago and largely kept to themselves. The next-door neighbor, Carol Love, said she spoke with the mother on Friday. They talked about how one of the children had grown out his hair long and recently cut it to donate for a children's cancer awareness campaign. She said the family was a friendly group who made a concerted effort to be nice neighbors, including making sure their dogs were not too loud. It's so sad. They were nice people. They didn't bother anybody, she said, fighting back tears. I hope they find out who did it. Well, she's living next door. Isn't she, freaked out? Didn't she say she heard gunshots? She didn't hear gunshots? Something about this is really weird. My goodness. Okay, another neighbor who has lived in a Romeoville home for 18 years said she didn't notice anything out of the ordinary about the family. She describes the block as a quiet area where nothing happens. There's nothing going on. We'll all stay to ourselves. There's no wild parties. There's nothing. I had a garage sale last year, and that's probably the most excitement this neighborhood has had. We just go to work, we come home, and we take care of our kids. She said she was home for most of the weekend and didn't hear any unusual noise coming from next door. She said the murders have left her shaken. Yeah. She and other neighbors said their sense of security has been ruptured since learning of the killings. Alfredo Rosas, who lives next door to Philip, said it was a scary situation that made him reconsider how he sees the neighborhood, which he also described as being tranquil. He said he saw the family outside every now and then, but didn't know them personally. Rosas was taken back by the merciless nature of the slayings, noting that not even the dogs were spared. It's a little extreme. I guess they were trying to prove a point or something. I don't know. It's already really bad. I am having such a problem with this, because why aren't they talking about forced entry into the home? If anybody had cameras, if this was not something that was done by one of the adults. Christina Barra, who has lived in the neighborhood for 3 years, says it's out of the ordinary for police to even patrol the area on weekends. It's so quiet. It's sad because it's your neighborhood and it's usually quiet, and then this happens. Romeoville is a suburb about 30 miles from Chicago. The village had a population as of 2021 of over 40,000, according to the U.S. Census Bureau. The investigation is still in its early stages. Anyone with information should contact Romeoville Police at 815-886-7219. So I guess, why would they say the shooter was there? The gun is not there. There's no weapon in the home. Is that the reason? Because why aren't they talking about if there was a forced entry? If there, I don't know. Something about this is not, something's wrong with this picture. The door doesn't look broken in. We're gonna have to dive a little deeper into this now. This is crazy. Hang on. So, who killed this family? What we have to do for this sometimes. Suspect not among the four. Okay, let's see if we get any more information out of this. Okay, so the two adults have been identified as RobertoRolon, 38 years old, and Zoraida Bartolomei, 32. The two children were both juvenile males. They didn't know if the adults were married, but confirmed they were the parents of the two children who were killed. The house was just purchased in April. Police say family members became concerned because one of the victims failed to show up for work at 6 a.m. on Sunday and didn't respond to phone calls throughout the day. Investigators believe the family members died between 9 p.m. and 5 a.m. Police confirmed that the suspect was not one of the victims. Despite that, police said at a news conference on Monday they're not asking anyone to shelter in place. Given the time that has elapsed since police believe the shooting happened, we are not actively looking for anybody in the area. He said authorities are not releasing any information on possible suspect leads and that due to the sensitivity of the investigation, no further details are currently being released. Well, they must know something from cell phone messages or something. That it seems like it's probably somebody that knew them and went there, but just the same, nobody heard. Look at how close the houses are. Nobody heard gunshots or anything or saw anything. That's so strange. Family annihilated. By who for what? Oh boy. Hold on, I'm trying to get back to the chat here for a sec. Sorry, I'm a few minutes late. I had to get some more. Oh, sorry. Sorry. So, this is not the right chat that I'm in. I mean, I'm in the right chat, but it's not the chat on my video. You don't know what I mean. In the studio where I can see things. Okay. Hi, Mike's girl. How are you? Okay. Let me see what you're saying. I'm just going to pop this in the video. And then see what you guys are saying. Come on, chat. Everybody make sure you're in live chat. Hi, Kellyanne. And why the dogs? Unless... No, I think that's what makes it seem so much because, like, look at... there's been other family annihilations where they killed the entire family, including the dogs, because they want everybody to be, like, they don't want the dogs to be okay. Yeah, I mean, they want the dogs not to wonder about where the dogs are going, I guess. So that's what it's making it really seem like it was. But I guess, how could they conclude that? They either found other evidence, they found no weapons because the person wouldn't be able to, shoot and kill himself and get rid of the weapon. So I think they were looking for someone else. Didn't know they had moved. Hold on a minute. Didn't know they had. Hey, Linda Uribe. You're Miles. Thank you. Thank you for being a Sergeant Rambler for 40 months. Remember the time when you accidentally clicked don't show you were a member or something? We always wondered why you weren't showing as a member even though you were. Look at that. Now you have milestones. Great. Thank you, Linda. Carolyn, did you? Yes, I did get your email. I did get it. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. And I think I have to get back to you on something. I will do that. It's just been crazy for me. Oh, you thought one of the parents? Yes. They said they don't know who did this, but now if there's no forced entry and the neighbors really aren't concerned, like, I don't know, if, let's just say, if my neighbors were all killed, including their pets, and the police were saying it wasn't done by one of them, I would be scared to death that there was some loony on the loose, okay? So I think that they're not scared to death, that there's something that the police are not releasing, but probably told the neighbors. And let me see. I want to see, because sometimes you can glean some information from comments and things. Oh, speaking of comments and things, about that other family, the woman that went missing with her 3 kids, that comment that I read, the justice for the family, they contacted me in my comment section and said they were the ones that left it and thank you, and dead from diet surgery. Okay. Oh my gosh. Okay, let me go over here and see if we can find out anything. I tried, a little bit. Like I said, by the time I got to come on, get to this case, I just knew it was a family annihilation and just used to that. It was one of, they didn't say there was anybody, I saw that, like that they were worried about. Okay, let me see here. I'm going to try this. Okay, so let me see. Here's something from the village of Romeoville. Let's see what they say. They say, today is an incredibly sad day for our community. On Sunday, September 17th at approximately 8:43 p.m., the Romeoville Police Department was requested to conduct a well-being check on the 500 block of Concord Avenue. A member of the family did not show up for work at 6 a.m. on the morning of Sunday, September 17th, and did not respond to phone calls throughout the day, resulting in family members becoming concerned. Upon arrival, officers found 4 deceased individuals with gunshot wounds. The deceased have been identified as RobertoRolon, Zoraida, Bartolomei, and 2 children. Preliminary investigation leads police to believe this happened between 9 p.m. on Saturday evening and 5 a.m. on Sunday morning. The investigation is still in its early stages. Due to the sensitivity of the case and to maintain the integrity of the investigation, no further details will be released at this time. Anyone with information should call 815-886-7219. Now let's see, there's comments here, so let's see. Sometimes you never know what you find in the comments. Okay, so someone said the officer said they're not looking in the area for the shooter, so are they looking elsewhere? Someone said, I'm guessing that means they have a suspect and they are not from around here. Same as other shootings we had this year. I'm sure they're still looking. Okay, there's not much here. Let's go to the next thing we can. Now, somebody said, is this a Zoraida from Portage, Indiana? As if like somebody, and this is like, it's like on a CBS News feed. They said that. So they just moved into this house in April. It's very odd. Okay. Very strange. Nobody's talking about forced entry, no forced entry, weapons. I understand that. Okay, here's some more. Let's see. Okay, now somebody in there says, okay, they had my mom and sister's school. They had my mom and sister school locked down for this today. The killer was spotted in the area. And someone says that was a whole other shooting. You say, oh my gosh. Oh my goodness. So odd. Okay, I'm going to try one other thing here. Okay, I think maybe we might find something here. Okay, somebody said definitely sounds domestic. Another person said it does. Sounds like whoever's responsible was familiar with the family because the children and pets made it personal, like someone lost their mind. So sad regardless of why. Someone said this sounds like a hit or something witness protection. They moved there in April. Don't mess with the cartel. Somebody said it had to be the cartel. If there is some random dude out there murdering whole families and their dogs, it's time to do something. This was a targeted hit for sure. Okay, here's another. Okay, it says, now let's see here. Searching for answers. Dan Lugo. Neighbors said the family warehouse for a beverage company and would give his free allotment of beer to the neighbor because the family did not drink. Police said a family member called them. We know that part. Okay. Huh. I'm just so shocked that there's not, let's see what else here. I don't understand this. Let me see. Here is the actual footage. Yeah, right. That's a. Oh boy. Nobody's saying the obvious. It's very, very crazy. Okay, let's see what this says. Investigation launch. Let's see if we have anything here. Okay. Let me go to, my computer's giving me issues. Hold on. It's getting angry with me. Fall is my favorite, says the sign on the door. 512. Huh. Crazy. Okay. Let's see if we can get this now. What else can I close? Close this. Close that. There we go, come on. You should be able to. Okay, here we go. Let's see if there's anything here. Is this linked to this too much celebrating? I don't know. I don't. I'm very perplexed here. Let's see something else. Come on. Oh my goodness, I'm sorry. It won't let me back to you. It won't let me do anything. I'm gonna get my phone. Let me start the task manager so I can shut down some stuff here. Sorry about this. I have to get. Don't be scared. It'll come back. I just have to shut some stuff down to get some more memory on this. Okay. All right, so let's shut this down. Okay. And what else can we do? All right. See if that helps. All right. Just going to see if I can. All right, I'm just not going to touch anything. That's probably the best thing. Give it a second to recover. But this is a really crazy thing. The other thing I want to talk about is Ruby Frankie. I was watching, that's how I don't know what time I was watching that, like 11 o'clock Eastern time or something, because I was thinking it was before, let me see, yeah, and there was a news station that was like outside the courthouse and talking about the postponement, and then now about privacy, so we're going to touch on that too. Okay, all right. Finally, it moved. Okay, let me go and look at this again. See if there's anything else I can find out here. Okay. What's our newest thing? Active police investigation. Huh. Crazy. We're Village of Romeoville, where community matters. Let's look at their. Is that their Twitter page? Yeah. See what's going on if we can get anything from there. Okay, here's something. Please see the statement. Let's see what people are saying over here. It was the... Can this be confirmed? Somebody said, okay. Let's go to the Romeoville Police Department. Just can't believe that. There's not more people asking questions about, well, let me check something here. Romeoville. 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 Killer on the loose. Romeoville. Huh. Okay, let's look at this. Police are investigating. Okay. All right, so let's check something else out. Okay, so let's look at this. El Chapo's son. So it says, police have ruled out the murder-suicide. Okay, so it says now, here's a little more information. The mother of the woman murdered alongside her partner and their 2 children in their suburban Illinois home has said she has no idea why anyone would want to kill them. Police found the bodies of Zoraida Bartolomei and her partner. Now here they're saying, instead of RobertoRolon, they're calling him RobertoRolon. I don't know. And sons Adriel, 9, and Diego, 7, during a routine welfare check on Sunday night. All 4 had been shot, along with the family's 3 dogs. Police have ruled out a murder-suicide and warned that the gunman remains on the loose. They were so happy they had just bought their new house 5 months ago, said the mother, Lydia, from her home in Puerto Rico. She had spoken to her daughter, She had spoken to her daughter shortly before her death on Saturday night, as the family settled down to watch a movie and cannot understand why they were murdered. There are always people who are jealous, but I've got no idea. Family member has asked officers from Romeoville to carry out a welfare check on the family when one of the adults failed to show up for work at 6 a.m. on Sunday and did not answer their phone. Hang on. Officers found a scene of carnage when they arrived at 8:40 p.m. that evening. Romeoville Police Deputy Chief Chris Byrne revealed few details at a press conference, citing the sensitivity of the case and the need to protect the integrity of the investigation, but he was confident that none of the dead were responsible and that the gunman left the scene. Okay. Let me see here. It's going to hold me up again. Come on. Okay, so we'll wait here again. I've got to get more memory for this computer. It has a lot of memory, but I use a lot. I've got to get some more. I'm going to write that on a post-it note. I've got to get it done. I can't deal with this anymore. Cannot deal with this. Come on. Oh, it's Bink. Got a package from you today, but I don't think you sent me the request for that. Or if you did, I didn't see it. I'll have to check. I didn't open it up. Okay. Come on, please. Okay, so let's see what we can glean here. We may be able to get some information here now. What keeps coming up is cartel hit. Okay, so someone said the only reason I can think of is a cartel hit or some kind of drug deal gone wrong. This has to be revenge thing over money and no witnesses. Police must investigate security and phone geolocation tracking to see who's in the area. They must be brought to justice. Someone said mistaken identity. Could they have been targeting the previous residents? Let's see. What else we have? Someone said, why would anyone jump to the conclusion that it was the cartel? They're not from Mexico, they're from Puerto Rico. This was not just a robbery. Looks like a professional hit. Where do you folks get that this couple was in the protection program? No one heard gunshots? It was a professional hit. They had silencers, I suppose. Even if it was only one bullet each, that's 7 shots. The house was only purchased 5 months ago. Maybe a mistaken identity. Sounds like a targeted attack. I guess the truth will come out eventually. The dogs being killed may mean one or two things. It was a robbery gone wrong and the dogs were killed to not raise the alarm. The other possibility is that it was a very personal killing where someone took complete revenge against this family by also killing their dogs. The woman had an ex-husband. The cops should already have him in for questioning. Someone wiped out that entire family, including the pets, and no one heard anything? Huh? What kind of mob hit was that? Sounds like a cartel hit. This is a cartel hit. Sounds like someone held a grudge. Someone said this is definitely a drug situation. You don't have to be an Einstein to figure that out. Also, I find it disgusting. People are more upset about the dogs being killed than little children. But that's the state of our society. These people were from Puerto Rico. They are American citizens. Learn some basic geography and don't make assumptions because they were Hispanic. Cartel or drugs is the only reason. No. Very strange. Let me go see what you guys are saying. Hi, Amanda Love. How are you? Or hi, Kama Sutra. How are you? Hi, Barbosa and Liza Ward. How are you? Okay, so what do you think? Let me see. I don't know which country the cartels are from, but Puerto Rico cartels are active too. Maybe the 9-year-old wrote her other parent had told them where they lived. I think because they might have taken the dogs from the original family and left the ex-spouse. What do you think? It's Pink, you think this is the ex-spouse? But, okay, here's the thing, though. The mother said, I guess the mother, somebody told them that those two people, whether married or not married, were the parents of those two children, which were 9 and 7, right? 9 and 7, so that would mean even if she had an ex-husband, she has been with this man for almost 10 years, you would think. I don't know. It's very weird. I mean, the houses there are very close. How do they... Yeah, I said that, Deborah. They didn't. One of the partners did not show up for work, and the family couldn't reach them, so a welfare check was called. The welfare check wasn't done till about 8:30 that night. Yeah, Barb, but it's just, gosh, can you imagine living there, Barb, and not knowing, like, a whole family's wiped out? You think it was the right house, but the wrong people, Ruff? Yikes. Yikes. Let me see if I can find out anything else. Come on. Oh boy. In the meantime, if you'd hit the likes, that would be very nice. And we'll see if I can find out anything else with this. Okay, let's go over here. Okay. Okay, so they're saying Drew Peterson, a cartel runner. Okay, so let me just see here if we can find that. And why is his name different in the one article? Which was interesting that it was different, huh? Okay. Okay, look how close. I want you to look how close these houses are, okay? I'm going to put up another picture and show you how close these houses are. And even if they had a silencer, you know, you would think that, I don't know, that there's going to be somebody heard something. I don't know. A dog's barking at least. I don't know. Maybe they're just not releasing that. Come on, where'd you go? Get over there. Get over there. Come on. Okay, hold on. I'm going to try to get this up here and make this larger for you so you can see this. It wants to play nice. Which it probably doesn't want to do. I won't see my little thing is just spinning. It's angry with me. But you can see here, look how close these houses are. Look at their driveways. You know, whoever did this would have to pull in. Okay, yeah, they could have parked down the street and ran in. Yeah, they could have. Talk about doorbell cameras. Did anybody have one? Makes me think they have something. Okay, so police did not say whether they had any leads on this subject. Again, here's another photo, and look how close the driveways to these houses are. See that? See how close this is? Entire family wiped out. RobertoRolon. Zoraida, Bartolomei. Let me see here. Zoraida. Zoraida Bartolomei. Well, there's one over here. Let's see. We can find so Bartolome's one. Zoraida Bartolomei Guzman, San Juan, Puerto Rico. A lawyer. Okay. And now, okay, here's another. Now they're using this name, RobertoRolon. Oh, I found his LinkedIn. Warehouse man in Euclid Beverages, LLC. Euclid Beverages, that's probably where he was probably the one going into work. Euclid Beverages. Trying to open up this Facebook. It's taking forever and a day. Okay, let me see. I don't. Well, this is kind of scary. If this is his Facebook, on September 15th, this person wrote, "My God, how bad is this that torments me, anxiety and restlessness?" But I don't know, this is this person with the same name, but I don't know that this is him, but I'm just saying that's just. Four days ago, this person with that name said, "If one day fed up, I hope no one says we will miss Q Live and no one who lives with me go fed up. God bless us today, tomorrow, and siempre. Nice day." What is going on? No, it can't be that. It can't be because they say ask for prayer for my son Jason. He's in the hospital in Florida. Unless he has another son that's not. It could still be. Maybe he has another son. I don't know. I don't think this is him. It was just very strange. It was the same name but that guy seemed to be in despair, so. There's an Instagram with that name as well. It looks like that man has 3 children, so I don't think that's him. Very strange, very strange. I'm just surprised that no one's asking about forced entry. No one's asking about, I know they're not releasing the information, okay, but I don't know. It just seems so strange. Let me jump to the comments here and see if there's anything. Oh gosh, there's no comments there at all. Really? Crazy. Okay, one other thing, and then we'll go on to the next thing, because, and I've done pretty much all I can here to see if there's anything to look at. Oh my goodness, this is going to drive me insane. This computer. Where's my freaking Post-its? I just want to do one thing. Come on. I'm sorry, guys. Let me see what's going on here. I know there's some stuff with Delphi being possibly some crazy stuff going around with paganism and occult and craziness coming out there. All right. 11-year-old boy to stand trial for his mother's murder. Is that the boy with the that shot his mother about the virtual reality headset? Yeah, the boy is accused of killing his mother last November when he was just 10 years old. It is. He's going to stand trial. Let's see, it says, an 11-year-old Wisconsin boy accused of murdering his mother has been ordered to stand trial. The boy is charged with first-degree intentional homicide. The DA's office is seeking to try him as an adult. The court has ordered that the boy's name not be revealed because he may still be tried as a child. In July, the court found the boy competent. The court found probable cause and bound the defendant over for trial, denying the defense's motion to dismiss the case. The boy is accused of killing his mother last November when he was just 10 years old. Milwaukee detective Timothy Keller testified in court on Tuesday after speaking with the boy about his mother's death. I quote, Originally, he informed me that he wasn't sure what had occurred, that he had just found his mother in the basement and believed she was deceased. The detective said he questioned the boy the next day, and the 10-year-old admitted shooting her, but called it an accident. The boy stated that he took up a shooting stance and was pointing the gun at her as she was walking towards him and asking him to put it down, and that's when he indicated that he fired the gun with his intent to scare her by shooting the wall behind her. He had made a purchase on his mother's Amazon account for some virtual reality goggles the morning after this homicide occurred, and the family was concerned because he had an argument with her about whether he could have these prior to the homicide. The boy pled not guilty and remains in custody. Wow, it's crazy. Kills me. I hate this. 10-year-old. Then, what did I just see there? What is this about? Oh, it says that, what the heck is going on here? Get away. Come on. I just saw something here. Let me see this. They say that former NFL player Sergio Brown is missing and his mother's been found dead. So they're searching for this guy, former NFL player. Sergio Brown. Neighbors of Myrtle Brown spoke highly of the woman. She was a longtime resident of Maywood. Just a lovely lady, very soft-spoken, outgoing, always on the go, said her neighbor, Kevin Grayer. Just a happy person. Her personality was just wonderful. Now there's shock after the Maywood police say Myrtle died from injuries related to an assault, and her son, Sergio Brown, is missing. Police say family members told them on Saturday they couldn't locate Sergio or his mother. After a search, the body of 73-year-old Myrtle was found near a creek behind her home. Sergio, 35, is a former safety in the NFL who played for 7 seasons with the New England Patriots, Indianapolis Colts, Jacksonville Jaguars, and Buffalo Bills. Residents say he lived with his mother and would often take walks in the neighborhood. Police have not said if he's a person of interest. I would always see him walk around and everything. I would say hi to him and he would wave to me and stuff like that. He seemed like a nice guy, said a neighbor, Miguel Lopez. Neighbor said Myrtle was a sharp dresser who loved to go dancing and was well known in the stepping community. She didn't deserve that. She was too good of a person to die like that. That's just sad, neighbor Grayer said. Police are still searching for Sergio and asked anyone with information to call Maywood Police. Dennis Diaz and in the investigations department, 708-368-4131, or Maywood's police department tip line, 708-450-1787. Okay. Hold on 1 second. Let's see. Sounds like it's windy. Why is it so quiet? This computer is just giving me nothing but agita right now. Come on. Okay. Oh my goodness. Okay, so get rid of that. A Seattle Police Accountability Office is investigating after an officer was recorded on his body camera joking over the death of a 23-year-old woman who was fatally struck by another officer who was responding to a call. Graduate student Janava Kandula was in a crosswalk the night of January 23rd when an officer struck her with his patrol SUV. The officer, Kevin Dave, was driving 74 miles per hour moments before the collision. According to the Seattle Police Department's investigative report provided to the King County Prosecuting Attorney's Office, Dave was responding as an emergency medical technician to a Priority 1 emergency call at the time. Officer Daniel Orderer responded to the scene to evaluate Dave and determined he did not show any signs of impairment, according to the investigation report. In a newly released body camera footage, Orderer can be heard discussing the incident while on the phone in his cruiser. And I quote him saying, "He's going 50 miles per hour. That's not out of control. That's not reckless for a trained driver," Orderer said, which according to the video's timestamp occurred on January 24th. The other person he is talking to cannot be heard during the call, and after discussing whether she was in the crosswalk and how far she was thrown, Orderer says, "But she is dead," and laughs several seconds later. Towards the end of the 2.5-minute video, Orderer says, "Yeah, just write a check," followed by laughter. $11,000. She was 26 anyway, he said, misstating Kandula's age. She had limited value. The Seattle Police Department on Monday released the footage, saying the video was identified by a department employee who was concerned about the nature of the statements heard on that video and brought it to the chief's office. Following a review of the video, the chief referred the matter to the police department's independent office of police accountability to determine any policy violation that might be implicated. The department released this video in the interest of transparency due to public concern, but said it cannot comment on its substance pending the completion of the Office of Police Accountability's investigation. SPD has been in touch with the family of the victim pedestrian and continues to honor their expressed request for privacy. The department said, as others in the accountability system proceed with their work, we again extend our deepest sympathy for this tragic collision. Orderer is vice president of the Seattle Police Officers Guild, the police union that represents Seattle officers. Okay, that's really unbelievable. Let's see. After Detective Orderer is heard confirming that the pedestrian died, he is laughing in response to the person on the other end of the call. He joked that her life was only worth $11,000 and had limited value. Kandula was from India and was working to earn a master's degree in information systems from Northeastern's University Seattle campus when she died. That's crazy. I don't understand it. People are just nuts. She was only 26. She had limited value. Wow. Wow. I'm trying to get back to you guys. And I think I am getting there. Okay, so let's see what we've got now. My chat is catching up because my chat was all behind too. Because right now I'm on 12. Oh my gosh, my chat is on 12:30. It's flying up, but it's an hour behind because my chat just stayed. Now it's like flying up. Now we're at 1 o'clock. We still have 20 more minutes to go before you're even anywhere with what I'm talking about. And we could get a few more likes on the video. That would be great. Still, now it's 1:20. Okay, we finally caught up. Okay, and High 61 says, and this is exactly why it's hard for people to trust law enforcement anymore because of the way they act. Hi, Heart May Wise. Some cases you can't handle it. Yeah, I hear you. How old is the football player? 30-something, Barb. Okay, so let's see what else. If there's anything else going on. Okay, so let's see what's going on in the Delphi case, okay? A newly released memorandum in the Delphi, Indiana double murder case suggests that a group of white nationalists are responsible for the 2017 deaths of Liberty German and Abigail Williams. Richard Allen, who stands accused of killing the girls while they were hiking on the Mononhai Bridge in Delphi, is asking the judge to throw out evidence from the search of his home, arguing the warrant omitted key information about the possible Odinism connection. Court documents indicated that a memorandum submitted to the court by Allen's lawyers Monday alleges that the 2022 search of Allen's home was unlawful since investigators did not disclose that members of a pagan Norse religion called Odinism, hijacked by white nationalists, ritualistically sacrificed Abigail Williams and Liberty German. It says in here in this memorandum, because the facts in this memorandum are dense for anyone not yet completely familiar with this case, the defense is providing the introductory section similar to the syllabus that often precedes a long and complex U.S. Supreme Court opinion. The purpose of this introductory section is to provide the court a general understanding of what to expect concerning the facts upon which the defense will be relying, and how those facts impact the legal arguments before providing the necessary detail, minutia, and notation to the records that could bog down the court as it attempts to unpack the defense arguments. The defense, therefore, will provide little attribution as to the source of the evidence in this introductory section, but will then provide proper attribution to the sources of the evidence throughout the body of the memorandum following the introduction. Okay, it said 8 things to know. Overwhelming evidence in this case supports the following. 1. Members of a pagan Norse religion called Odinism, hijacked by white nationalists, ritualistically sacrificed Abigail Williams and Liberty German. 2. Very early on, those in charge of the Delphi murder investigation claimed that they consulted with a Purdue professor concerning what resembled possible Odinism signatures left behind at the crime scene. After the Purdue professor proclaimed, according to State Trooper Jerry Holman, that it was not Odinism or any type of cult worshipping or any type of group that would have conducted the crime, the Odinism angle was essentially abandoned. However, as of September 7th, 2023, the leaders of the Delphi investigation team claim they can't identify who this purported professor was, have provided no reports from the purported professor, and 3, have further indicated they may never be able to figure out who this professor is. Based in large part upon the mystery, Purdue's professor's opinion, the Delphi investigative leadership claimed that it essentially abandoned considering Odinite involvement in the murders, and then the years passed, 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, and 2022. Thankfully, during those passing years, law enforcement officers Kevin Murphy, Greg Ferenczi, and Todd Click continue to pursue the truth. Because of their curiosity and investigative efforts, the evidence establishing the names of the likely murdering members of this Odinite cult became known as to the Delphi investigative leadership no later than February 2018. Due to either incompetence or a concerted intentionality, those in charge of the investigation refused to arrest or even properly investigate these obvious suspects. On May 1st, 2023, the state of Indiana, by way of prosecutor Nick McClelland, received a letter from former Rushville Assistant Police Chief Todd Click, now retired. As stated in the previous paragraph, Click, Murphy, and Ferenczi were 3 of the law enforcement officers who worked on the Delphi murder case, particularly focused on the Odinite angle as it intersected with suspects in Rushville, Indiana. After reading Richard Allen's probable cause affidavit, Click became concerned that the information contained in Richard Allen's affidavit pointing the finger at Richard Allen was far less compelling than the totality of the information that Detective Ferenczi, Detective Murphy, and Officer Click had accumulated during the Rushville portion of the investigation. The information that Murphy, Ferenczi, and Click have gathered during their investigation connected men who practiced Odinism in or near Delphi with another group of men who lived in Rushville, and then connected both groups of men to the murders. Click was concerned that for some reason the leadership of the investigative team had failed to share with Prosecutor McClelland the evidence gathered by Click, Ferenczi, and Murphy. Click's concerns led him to seek out a lawyer to assist him in drafting of a letter. The letter was then sent to McClelland. The letter was not provided to the defense until after it was obvious from the last round of depositions that the defense, who had doggedly pursued witnesses as far away as Georgia, would certainly be talking with Todd Click. McClelland had this letter in his possession for over 4 months before turning it over to the defense. There can be no mistaking that this letter is exculpatory in nature and could have been used by the defense as it prepared for upcoming depositions. However, it is apparent that McClelland only offered up the letter after it was obvious that the defense team would soon be learning of the letter's existence. In other words, the defense team would obviously be meeting with or deposing Click in the next few weeks. At that time, Click most certainly would then reveal to the defense that in April of 2023, he, Click, had sent a letter containing exculpatory information to McClelland. At this point, McClelland had 2 distinct choices. 1, sit on the exculpatory evidence, hoping that the defense team would refocus its efforts on another angle of the investigation, or 2, disclose the exculpatory evidence, claiming that the contents of the letter were overlooked in the volume of discovery. He chose the latter. Unfortunately for the state, neither approach explains away the fact that Click specifically directed the letter to McClelland himself, and further, Click was so determined to ensure his information was consumed by McClelland that he directed the information directly to McClelland via certified mail. The letter is stamped received May 1st, 2023, Carroll County Prosecutor. Click's report landed at Ground Zero, a prosecutor's office with no more than 2 full-time prosecutors and a handful of full-time staff members at best. Could this exculpatory evidence have been completely overlooked? Not plausible. Not only did the prosecution withhold the letter from the defense, but law enforcement also withheld several other exculpatory pieces of evidence, including an 85-page compilation of reports by Click prepared in 2019 and several videos containing statements that support the defense theory of Richard Allen's innocence. The 85-page report detailed the investigative report performed by Click, Farron C. Murphy, and others, including the FBI. According to the summary of Click's investigation that he attached with his letter, the Behavioral Analysts Unit of the FBI determined that the individual responsible for the homicides were involved in Nordic beliefs. This was news to the defense, as no member of the unified command in charge of the investigation revealed this information to the defense during recent depositions. And this includes Trooper Holman, who told the defense that he didn't remember if the FBI's BAU unit determined one way or the other whether those with Nordic beliefs had been involved in the murders. At least up until the time of this filing, the prosecution had provided no evidence whatsoever on the findings of the FBI's BAU unit concerning involvement of Odinists in the murders. None. The letter that Click sent to McClelland was the first that the defense has heard that the FBI actually believed the Odinists were likely involved. In other words, this report contained exculpatory evidence that Unified Command concealed from the defense. This information was and is crucial for Richard Allen's defense. Some of this exculpatory evidence, in the form of videos, was finally released to the defense on September 8th, 2023, over 9 months after defense counsel entered their appearance. The defense is still reviewing the September 8th evidence dump. In the brief time the defense has had to review this newly received evidence, it has found exculpatory evidence both in the videos the defense has watched and the documents that the defense has reviewed. While the prosecution has been holding on to this exculpatory evidence, Richard Allen has been living in hell. Lastly, the evidence will show that the week of August 28, 2023, Prosecutor McClelland and State Trooper Jerry Holman requested a meeting with Todd Click. By this time, the defense team had taken several depositions, including Holman, Leggett, and Leanne Zenby. And the prosecution and Delphi investigative leadership now knew that for a while the defense team had been aware of the Odinist evidence, at least the evidence that the prosecution turned over to the defense scattered throughout multiple hard drives and many flash drives. The prosecution had learned in early August that the defense had figured out the strong odinous ties to the crimes despite the apparent attempts of the prosecution, Leggett and Holman, to hide this exculpatory information from the defense. Wanting to allay his fears that an innocent man was sitting in Westville, Click agreed to attend the meeting with Holman, hoping that he would be learning the evidence did in fact exist linking Richard Allen to the murders. Click's hopes were dashed. Paragraph 17 of Click's affidavit. Upon directing the letter to Mr. McClelland, I heard nothing from the prosecutor's office or any other members of Unified Command until I received phone calls on August 23rd and August 25th of 2023, which involved brief discussions regarding scheduling. During these phone calls, it was requested that I meet with Trooper Holman during the week of September 4th, 2023. I was informed that law enforcement officials intended to sit down with me and discuss with me the reason why Richard Allen was responsible for these crimes. I was told that he, Jerry Holman, wanted to put my mind at ease. However, during the meeting with Detective Holman and a second detective whose name I am unfamiliar with, there was no discussion or offerings as to why they believed Richard Allen was guilty of the charged crimes. I believe the interview was an attempt by them to clean up their loose ends, knowing that they had given very little, if any, attention to the investigative efforts of myself, Detective Ferenczi, and Detective Murphy. Not only did the Carroll County Sheriff, Tony Leggett, fail to include all this Odinite information in his October 13th, 2022 affidavit for search warrant, and not only did McClelland and the Unified Command withhold exculpatory evidence, Leggett also concealed damaging witness statements that devastate Leggett's timeline, a timeline Leggett needed to be true in order to place Richard Allen at the trail when Abby and Libby were abducted. Additionally, Leggett tied in his affidavit about the statements of another key witness. He lied, further devastating Leggett's timeline. Richard Allen has zero connections to any pagan cult or pagan cultists, and furthermore, no forensic evidence such as DNA or electronic evidence links Richard Allen to the girls or to the crime scene. He is a completely innocent man. Most of the evidence backing these assertions were found scattered over no less than 10 hard drives and several flash drives provided by the prosecution, meaning that the defense is not making wild accusations, but rather primarily relaying facts and information that is backed up by the prosecution's own discovery. Even discovery that the prosecution just provided to the defense as late as September 8th of 2023. Not coincidentally, members, Odinus, of this same pagan cult are employed as corrections officers for the Indiana Department of Corrections at Westville Correctional Facility. It is inside of the cold concrete walls of the maximum security unit of this dilapidated reformatory that Richard Allen is being threatened, intimidated, and mentally abused. Throughout this document, references are made to the Unified Command. Essentially, the Unified Command was the leadership of the Delphi murder investigation. According to Tony Leggett, Carroll County Sheriff, and members of the Unified Command when the investigation began, Unified Command consisted of law enforcement from a variety of entities, local, state, and federal. Unified Command were overseers of the entire investigative operation. According to Leggett, the members of the Unified Command were from Carroll County, Tony Leggett and Kevin Hammond, from State Police, Jerry Holman, Jay Harper, and Dave Vito. Okay. Odinism is the pagan religion referenced above, and its followers are called Odinites. Odinists are enamored of Viking, Nordic culture. Evidence supports that at the crime scene, these murdering Odinites left behind obvious signatures, symbols in the form of runes. These runes were found formed with sticks, fashioned with tree branches, and painted using the blood of Liberty German. Sticks and tree branches were deliberately, carefully, and proficiently placed on each girl in a certain arrangement, mimicking certain runes. At least one of the branches appeared to have, hang on a second, its end cut off cleanly by some type of tool, like an electric saw, providing proof of a preconceived plan. Additionally, the blood of Liberty German was used as the paint to mark a tree with a rune that looked similar to the letter F. With a simple Google search, these runes would be identifiable as one of the many calling cards of this pagan religious cult. Yet law enforcement in charge of the Delphi investigation seemingly and quickly abandoned the obvious correlation between the crime scene and Odinism, despite an obscene amount of evidence linking Odinism to the crime scene. And even in spite of powerful evidence linking specific Odinites in and around Indiana to the murders. Also, the court will learn in his affidavit for search warrant that Sheriff Leggett failed to inform Judge Diner that nothing, absolutely nothing, links Richard Allen to Odinism or any religious cult. Also, no forensics such as DNA, no electronic data extracted from his computers or phones, or from his social media links Richard Allen to the crime scene. Additionally, nothing links Richard Allen to any of the Odinite suspects, the same Odinite suspects that evidence strongly supports sacrificed Abby and Libby in some sort of pagan ritual. Richard Allen had nothing to do with this crime, but rather is an innocent man, a patsy for the police, arrested 26 days before an election. Law enforcement's failure to actively pursue the obvious links between the crime scene and Odinism is confounding. It is even more confounding when days and weeks after the murders, a particular Odinite from Longsport named Brad Holder posted on social media images mimicking the very runes found at the crime scene unreleased and unknown to the general public even to this day. Who is Brad Holder? He was an Odinite whose son, Logan, had been dating Abby. Brad Holder's social media posts seemingly taunt the very police that refused to fully investigate him. The defense believes that the court will be shocked at the number of clues or Easter eggs, both before and after the murders, that Holder openly posted on his Facebook page and pointed the finger to his involvement in the murders. However, a fact that is simply mind-blowing to the defense is that Brad Holder was never considered a suspect in the murders of Abby and Libby. State Trooper Jerry Holman, one of the law enforcement officers in charge of organizing and investigating the Delphi murders, claimed in his August 10, 2023 deposition that Brad Holder was never really ever a suspect. Police reports written near the time of the murders reveal that Jerry Holman is telling the truth. Brad Holder was cleared as a suspect quickly on March 16, 2017. On March 1, 2017, Tony Leggett stated in a report that there were no leads required concerning Brad Holder, meaning that it was not necessary for law enforcement to continue to look for leads related to Brad Holder. Leggett made the determination a mere 15 days after the girls were murdered. By March 16, 2023, the Unified Command member Kevin Hammond wrote that Brad Holder has been cleared. The girls hadn't been dead for 30 days, and Unified Command had already cleared Brad Holder as a suspect. Unified Command had already cleared Holder as a suspect within 30 days, knowing that Brad Holder's son dated Abby. Unified Command had already cleared Holder as a suspect within 30 days of the murders, although a simple review of Brad Holder's Facebook page would show that he, Brad Holder, was a proud Odinite that had an absolute obsession and fascination with runes. Police knew or had to know that runes had been left on the crime scene. Additionally, Unified Command had already cleared Holder as a suspect in spite of the fact that runes found on Brad Holder's Facebook pages mimicked the ones found at the crime scene that had not been released to the public. The investigation had barely begun, but the Unified Command had already cleared the very man that any person with even a small amount of common sense or curiosity would believe was a strong candidate for being involved in the murder of the girls. For example, the court will also learn that the Unified Command was aware of a very disturbing image on Brad Holder's social media accounts and actually mimic the crime scene. On April 12, 2017, Trooper Joseph Ryan Winters received a call from a man in Georgia named Ryan Boucher, who had discovered disturbing images in Brad Holder's social media account. Having somehow learned that Brad Holder's son, Logan, had dated Abby Williams, Mr. Boucher began reviewing Brad Holder's social media history. One of the images Boucher viewed on Brad Holder's social media account was an image of two women, either dead or posed as if they were dead, on the ground in what appeared to be a forest. Both women had tree limbs and sticks arranged on their bodies, and one of the women had her arm stretched out above her head, similar to the way that Libby's arm was stretched above her head. Both women were clothed, and the stick and branch formations on these girls was different than the stick and branch formations on Abby and Libby, but otherwise it bore a very eerie similarity to the murder scene in Delphi. Ryan Boucher had no knowledge of the actual crime scene. However, after reviewing Brad Holder's social media sites, Boucher was disturbed at that image as well as the other images that provided insight into Brad Holder's fascination with runes. Believing that the disturbing images may be something of interest to those investigating the Delphi murders, Mr. Boucher contacted Toby Liansby, who at the time was the sheriff of Carroll County. Liansby quickly rebuffed Boucher, telling Boucher that Holder was not a suspect. Undeterred, Mr. Boucher contacted the state police, where he ended up talking to Trooper Joseph Ryan Winters. After their conversation, Winters memorialized the interaction and placed the images provided by Boucher into a Dropbox account. After creating the report, Winters then discussed his findings face-to-face with Jerry Holman of Unified Command. The body of this memorandum will provide details of that interaction. In his report, Winters requested law enforcement to re-interview Brad Holder. The defense does not believe Unified Command ever followed up on Winters' request. It should be noted that the disturbing images found by Boucher in Georgia and placed in a Dropbox by Winters were not and have still not been provided to the defense. In his recent deposition, Winters said that he had attempted to locate the images but was unable. However, because of the potential importance of those images to Richard Allen's case, the defense team located Boucher and then traveled to Georgia to meet with Boucher. Those images are now in the possession of Richard's defense team, who then provided those images to law enforcement. Again, these were images, important images, that law enforcement failed to turn over to the defense. Instead, the defense located these images in Georgia and then turned them over to the very people who had the obligation to provide them to the defense. Unified Command, which included Tony Leggett, who drafted the affidavit for search warrant, was fully aware of the mimicked crime scene on Brad Holder's social media, as well as other posts that mimicked the exact ruins found at the crime scene, but failed to do anything and failed to inform Judge Diener of this obvious suspect, Brad Holder, and all of the evidence that existed against Holder, making him a prime suspect. The court will learn in the body of this memorandum that Holder was connected to the crime scene, and to the men who had confessed to the crime. The evidence of those connections will be provided in the body of the memorandum, including copies of the images found on Holder's Facebook page at the time of the investigation, which link Holder to the crime scene, as well as the images found by Ryan Boucher that law enforcement had failed to turn over to the defense. The defense will also attach what the defense calls the Winters Report, which is the memorialization of Trooper Winters' interaction with Ryan Boucher. Leggett provided none of this evidence or information to Judge Diener. Is it Diener? I'm probably botching his name. But rather allowed Judge D, I'm just going to call him Judge D, to believe that Richard Allen was a lone suspect in the murders in spite of zero evidence linking Richard Allen to the crimes at the time. Leggett sought the search history 26 days before an election. Unified Command's failure to vigorously pursue the obvious links between the crime scene and Odinism is even more perplexing when evidence known to law enforcement demonstrated a clear nexus between Brad Holder and at least 4 other suspects: Elvis Fields from Rushville, Patrick Westfall from Delphi, Johnny Messer from Rushville, and Rod Abrams from Rushville, now living in Connorsville. Unified Command was aware that Elvis Fields confessed to his sister that he, Elvis, was involved in the murders, even providing to his sister intimate crime scene details of which only those present at the crime scene would have familiarity. Additionally, Elvis Fields told his sister, Mary, on February 14, 2017, that he was present at the killings and that he, Elvis, now had a brother and was now part of a gang. February of 2018, Elvis had been questioned by law enforcement but denied involvement in the murders. However, after being dropped off at his trailer following the questioning, Elvis turned around, walked back to the police car, and according to the police report, asked the state trooper if Elvis's spit is found on one of the girls, but he could explain it away. Would he still be in trouble? The state trooper then heard Elvis utter these words. Kevin Murphy was not part of Unified Command, but immediately relayed Elvis's disturbing question to Jay Harper of Unified Command. Elvis also admitted to a different sister, Joyce, that he had, in fact, spit on one of the girls. Elvis told Joyce that he, Elvis, was on a trail and a bridge with 2 girls that were killed, and he was going away for a long time. Elvis's alibi for February 13th, 2017, was also probably flawed. State troopers who weren't part of the Unified Command determined that Elvis's roommate concocted a story concerning Elvis's whereabouts on February 13th, 2017. The roommate is named Rod Abrams. Abrams told a story claiming on February 13, 2017, that he, Rod Abrams, Elvis Fields, and a man named Ned Smith were visiting a sick friend in Muncie. Unfortunately for Rod Abrams, the story conflicted with the story that Elvis Fields told law enforcement as to Elvis's, whereabouts on February 13, 2017. These shady alibis were relayed to Unified Command. These shady alibis will be further explained in the body of the memorandum. Furthermore, Unified Command knew that on February 1st, 2018, Elvis's sister passed a polygraph examination when asked if she was telling the truth about what Elvis had confessed to her. Unified Command's failure to vigorously pursue the obvious links between the crime scene and Odinism is even more inexplicable when evidence known to law enforcement included information about another Odinite named Patrick Westfall, who was living in Delphi, very close to the murder scene on February 13, 2017. Evidence known to Unified Command included the fact that fellow Odinites Patrick Westfall and Brad Holder were close friends as late as January 21st, 2013. However, that friendship ended very abruptly in February of 2017. The schism in their friendship resulted from a fight that occurred between Holder and Westphal in February of 2017, where he, Holder, and Westphal were in the woods near a river conducting a ritual. One of them said or did something the other did not agree with, and they no longer talked to each other. The river was near Patrick's house, and intoxicated Brad Holder shared this disturbing information with his ex-wife, Amber Holder. Amber Holder then relayed this disturbing information to law enforcement, who were not a part of Unified Command in 2019. These officers then relayed this disturbing information to Unified Command. Leggett concealed this information from Judge Diner. In 2019, Unified Command learned that in a totally different conversation with his ex-wife, Brad Holder pointed the finger away from himself and directly at Patrick Westphal as being the person actually responsible for the murders of Abby and Libby. According to the police reports, Brad Holder told his ex-wife, Amber Holder, that Westphal and his people killed Abigail Williams and Liberty German because one of their mothers was mixing with other people outside the mother's race. Furthermore, Unified Command was aware that Brad Holder had told Amber that I can only protect you so much if you keep asking questions. Brad Holder further told his ex-wife, Amber, that Patrick Westphal had many people backing him up and that Westphal also had powerful friends. Leggett knew of this information for more than 3 years before Leggett sought a search warrant for Richard Allen's house, yet Leggett never shared this information with the judge. Additionally, Westphal provided a very weak alibi as to his whereabouts on February 13th, 2017. Westphal told law enforcement that he, Westphal, was at home the afternoon of Monday, February 13th, 2017. The defense is unaware of any search warrant that Leggett sought to enter Westphal's house or whether Unified Command instructed law enforcement to knock on a single neighbor's door to verify Westphal's alibi. Unified Command's failure to continually pursue the obvious links between the crime scene and Odinism is even more disturbing when evidence known to law enforcement included information about another Odinite named Johnny Messer from Rushville. Johnny was a recruiter for the Odinites and was also the connective tissue between the Odinites from the Delphi area, Brad Holder and Patrick Westphal, and the suspects from the Rushville area, Elvis Fields and Rod Abrams. Excuse me. Delphi is located 126 miles from Rushville. Law enforcement knew that Johnny Messer was friends with Brad Holder and Patrick Westphal. Law enforcement also knew that Messer was acquaintances with Elvis Fields and Rod Abrams. Unified Command theoretically could claim, and actually appeared to be claiming, that this connection is simply a bizarre coincidence. However, Unified Command not only knew that Elvis Fields, Rod Abrams, and Brad Holder, Patrick Westphal, shared a common acquaintance, Johnny Messer, but also that Elvis Fields and Brad Holder followed each other on Facebook and even mimicked each other's Facebook pages, with Elvis Fields actually recreating the photos that Holder posted on Holder's Facebook page. Shockingly, at his August 10th, 2023 deposition, Unified Command member Jerry Holman claimed that he did not even know who Johnny Messer was, nor what the evidence showed of Messer's possible role in the murders of Abby and Libby. It is additionally infuriating that Johnny Messer was cleared as a suspect in the murders when considering these facts. Johnny's ex-girlfriend, Taylor Hornaday, told police that Johnny Messer and Patrick Westphal were like brothers. She also told police that she had allowed Johnny to borrow her car on or about Valentine's Day 2017, and that Johnny drove her car up there to hang out with his Vinlander friends. When he returned her vehicle, it had dried blood over one side of it. Johnny Messer refused to discuss the details of how the blood got there. Johnny Messer's ex-girlfriend, further stated it took her several car washes to finally remove the blood. Meanwhile, Messer had claimed that he had never, not once in his life, been to Delphi, home of his brother Patrick Westfall, and near the home of his other Odenite brother, Brad Holder. Messer's ex-girlfriend also told law enforcement that Brad Holder and Johnny Messer were two of the most violent people she knew and were fully capable of having been involved in the murders. Johnny Messer's ex-girlfriend further stated that a motive for their involvement in the murder of Abby and Libby might be the concept of blood in and blood out, which means social acceptance into their secret circles. All this evidence was relayed to Leggett and the Unified Command team, yet Unified Command provided no guidance as to what to do to capitalize on this information in order to work towards solving the murders. Additionally, Unified Command learned that Johnny Messer's ex-girlfriend had been listening. Sorry, I heard a noise. Had been listening to and recording Johnny Messer's phone calls. Police secured the phone and listened to 3 phone calls involving Johnny Messer. In 2 of those phone calls, Messer was offering money to other people to find someone so they can be injured or killed. The 3rd call involves Messer bragging about holding a subject hostage and shooting them at his house. Essentially, Unified Command said nothing to see here regarding Johnny Messer, and they issued no search warrants for his home. None had been disclosed to the defense, nor did they attempt to utilize an age-old investigative tool referred to as interrogation to pursue the truth about the involvement of Johnny Messer, Brad Holder, or Patrick Westfall in these crimes. Many more shocking facts concerning this so-called investigation will be revealed in the body of the memorandum. The evidence shows that during his pre-trial incarceration at Westville Correctional Facility, Richard Allen has been monitored, intimidated, and mentally abused by correctional officers whom are also members of the Odenite cult. 2 of those correctional officers are named Sergeant Robinson and Sergeant Jones. These Westville Corrections officers boldly wore patches on their Department of Corrections DOC uniforms that proclaimed, "In Odin we trust," along with another patch displaying symbols of Odism, interlocking triangles. Both Odenite correctional officers, Sergeant Robertson and Sergeant Jones, also displayed images of runes and or other Odenite symbols or on their Facebook pages. As recently as June 25, 2023, for example, Odenite Sergeant Robinson openly displayed a photograph of his Odenite altar on his Facebook page. Similar altar can be found on the Facebook page of Brad Holder. Beginning at least on April 3, 2023, Sergeant Jones and Sergeant Robinson wore their Odin patches when the defense team visited Richard Allen. However, Sergeant Robinson and Sergeant Jones' brazen display of their Odinites patches came to an end on August 17, 2023. What changed? Why suddenly did they no longer display their Odinite patches beginning on the August 17, 2023 visit between Richard Allen and his defense team? Here is your possible answer. It was not until an August 10th, 2023 deposition of Trooper Jerry Holman that Richard Allen's defense team finally revealed to the prosecutor and to the Unified Command that for many months They, Richard Allen's defense team, had been fully aware of the strong evidence linking Odinism to the murders. It was also at the August 10th, 2023 deposition that the Unified Command learned that Richard Allen's defense team was not only aware of this information, but also intended to expose the linkage of Abby and Libby's murders to Odinism, and would also be revealing the names of the Odinists at trial. At that deposition, Holman and the prosecutor also learned that the defense team obviously intended on exposing the Unified Command's utter failure in pursuing the Odinist suspects in spite of the powerful evidence of Odinites' involvement in the murders. However, and this is important to note, at his August 10th, 2023 deposition, Richard's defense team did not let Holman or anyone else know that the defense team, was fully aware of the Odinite corrections officers at Westville wearing an Odin We Trust patches. Richard Allen's defense team's next visit with Richard Allen at Westville following the August 10th, 2023 deposition occurred 1 week later on August 17th, 2023. Curiously, or perhaps not so curiously, in those 7 days since the defense team revealed their knowledge that evidence linked Odinists to the murders for the first time, Sergeant Robinson was no longer wearing his Odin patch. It was almost as if someone had alerted Odinite Robinson that the gig was up. Because the lawyers knew about the links to Odinism, so lose the patch and pray that the defense attorneys had never noticed those patches on prior visits. Unfortunately for Westville and the Unified Command, Rick's defense team absolutely noticed the Odinite patches worn by Sergeant Robinson and Sergeant Jones beginning April 3rd, 2023. Furthermore, Rick's defense team absolutely noticed the conspicuous absence of Sergeant Robinson's Odin patches following Trooper Holman's realization that Rick's defense team was fully aware of the connection between the murders and Odinism, as well as the failure of the Unified Command to follow through on the evidence that linked the murders to Odinism. The court will also learn in the body of this memorandum that Sergeant Jones and Sergeant Robinson were seemingly always by Richard Allen's side during most, if not every visit. Normally, corrections officers, usually Sergeant Robinson and Sergeant Jones, were within earshot of every conversation between Richard and his attorneys and between Richard and his wife, close enough that Richard would have to be worried about any conversation with his attorneys and with his wife being overheard by Sergeant Robinson and Sergeant Jones or other corrections officers beginning on April 3rd, 2023, and for several visits thereafter. The Westville correction officers even videotaped attorney visits between Richard and his defense team. Most of the time, if not every time, it was Sergeant Jones or Sergeant Robinson bringing the handheld camcorder to the visit. Corrections officers even required that Richard Allen be positioned facing the window where the correction officer was videotaping the attorney visits with the handheld camcorder. The positioning of Richard Allen's body would allow the corrections officers to videotape Richard Allen's mouth as he talked to his attorneys. Richard would therefore not be able to privately discuss anything with his attorneys, such as, "The guards are telling me that my wife and family will be killed unless I call my wife and tell her that I killed those girls." Instead, a mentally defeated Richard Allen hold on, I want to read that again. The positioning of Richard Allen's body would allow the corrections officers to videotape Richard Allen's mouth as he talked to his attorneys. Richard would therefore not be able to privately discuss anything with his attorneys, such as, "The guards are telling me that my wife and family will be killed unless I call my wife and tell her that I killed those girls." Instead, a mentally defeated Richard Allen would continually mutter to his defense team at every visit these types of general questions. "Is my wife alive? Is my family alive? Is my wife safe? Is my family safe? At one such meeting with his attorneys, Richard Allen mumbled in a somewhat incoherent fashion that Odinites were threatening him. It would be important to know that Richard Allen's defense team had never mentioned the words Odinites or Odinism, or informed Richard Allen that evidence suggests that Odinites murdered Abby and Libby until August 25, 2023, when his defense team, in the presence of his wife, who was visiting with Rick in the prison, first discovered the exculpatory Odin-related evidence to Rick. Rick's defense team felt that having him remain unaware would hopefully keep Rick a bit safer due to Rick's weakened mental state and the concern that he might unwittingly discuss his attorney's strategy to Sergeant Jones and Sergeant Robinson. Rick's attorneys opted to not discuss Odinism with their client out of fear that Sergeant Robinson and Sergeant Jones would then be on the alert that Richard's defense team was aware of the Odinite involvement. Richard's defense team needed additional time to investigate and review evidence before feeling confident and comfortable in revealing their knowledge of the court of the strong evidence that the Odinites murdered the girls and that the Unified Command had chosen to do nothing about it, but in fact had hidden these facts from the judge. Therefore, Richard's defense team opted to keep Richard in the dark about the Odinite connection to the murders supported by the evidence. Again, more detailed information concerning the Odinite corrections officers as well as the documentation supporting that information will be provided in the body of this memorandum. Leggett concealed certain witness testimony and falsified other witness testimony in order to prevent Leggett's bogus timeline from being exposed to the judge. Before the shocking omissions concerning the pagan cult links to the murders and the fact that Odinists were also watching Richard Allen, akin to foxes watching the henhouse, the evidence will show that Leggett's affidavit for search warrant is also filled with lies and other concealed information concerning witness testimony. This false and concealed information completely eviscerates the state's timeline. The evidence will show that Tony Leggett knew of the major problems that these witnesses' testimony created, and Leggett chose to solve his problem by concealing this information and even falsifying other information in order to bolster the state's bogus timeline. The evidence will show that Leggett concealed facts concerning descriptions that key witnesses Betsy Blair made directly to Leggett face-to-face in 2019 concerning 1, the person that she, Betsy Blair, observed on the bridge, and 2, a vehicle that she, Betsy Blair, observed at the CPS parking lot at about 2:15 p.m. For Leggett's timeline to work and to place Richard Allen on the Monon High Bridge at 2:13, the time of the famous Down the Hill video, Leggett desperately needed Betsy Blair to describe a man on the bridge that looked like Richard Allen, and furthermore, desperately needed Betsy Blair to describe a car that she observed parked at the CPS parking lot at approximately 2:15 p.m. as looking like Richard Allen's black Ford Focus. Suffice it to say, the evidence will show that Leggett concealed from the judge that Betsy Blair described a man on the bridge that looked nothing like Richard Allen and described a car at the CPS lot that looked nothing like Richard Allen's car, both in color and design. The evidence will show that Betsy provided these timeline-defeating descriptions directly to Leggett face-to-face 2 times in 2019. Yet, Leggett failed to inform the judge of these descriptions as well as inform the judge of the fatal flaws that these misleading descriptions created for the timeline. The evidence will also show that Leggett just flat out lied about what he claimed Sarah Carbo told him in 2017 concerning a man walking down the road near the murder scene. For Leggett's timeline to work, Leggett needed Sarah Carbo to describe a man walking down the road wearing a blue jacket who had blood covering his clothing. However, in 2017, Sarah did not say these things. This did not prevent Leggett from affirming under oath that Sarah did say those things. In fact, what Sarah Carbo actually told Leggett in 2017 was that she observed a man walking down the road wearing a tan coat whose clothes were muddy. Nowhere did she claim in 2017 that the man she observed wearing a blue coat. Nowhere did Carbo claim in 2017 that the man she observed wearing bloody clothes. Nowhere the truth about what Sarah actually told Leggett blows up Leggett's timeline, which is the likely reason Leggett failed to include this information in his affidavit. Additional evidence will be presented in the body of this memorandum. The defense believes that the evidence strongly supports the contention that Leggett intentionally concealed evidence from the judge and lied about the other evidence to the judge in his affidavit for search warrant. However, even if Leggett did not intentionally conceal the evidence from the judge, or did not intentionally place false information into the search warrant affidavit, at a minimum, Leggett behaved recklessly when he prepared the affidavit, omitting those facts from the judge and providing false information in the affidavit. As stated in the motion accompanying this brief, the defense must show that Leggett either intentionally or recklessly omitted facts from the affidavit or provided false statements in the affidavit. Evidence supporting these facts were needles in a giant haystack of discovery. To conclude the introduction portion of this memorandum, the defense would tell the court that the evidence supporting the assertions contained throughout this memorandum were buried deep in a mountain of discovery, thousands upon thousands of pages of paperwork and hundreds of hours of videos, but not buried deep enough. The court will know at the conclusion of this memorandum that the defense is not inventing, fabricating, or exaggerating those facts, no matter how crazy those facts may appear. Richard Allen's defense team is attaching to this memorandum the supporting documentation that provides proof that these facts are true. The memorandum will consist of 5 parts. Part 1 will be a description of the crime scene. The description will provide important and necessary context that will allow understanding for the rest of the memorandum and will also provide insight into the preposterous claim by Sheriff Leggett that one and only one person was responsible for these murders. This will be important as Sheriff must claim that Richard Allen acted alone in order to dispel the massive evidentiary foundation that supports the likelihood that the pre-planned abduction and ritualistic murder of Abby and Libby required multiple Odinites in order to succeed. Okay, I just want to make sure you guys are still here, still around, and want me to continue with this. I just want to make sure. So let me see. Try and get back to the live chat. Okay, do you want me to continue with this? Just give me a yes or a no. Hi, Murder of Crows. I'm interested in it. I just want to make sure that you're interested in it, since let me know that you want me to continue with this or not. Yes or no, no or yes, yes or no, no or yes, yes or no. Yes, Eva Poole says. Hello, Eva Poole. Thank you for your answer. Yes, says High 61. Okay. Yes, please. Okay, good. I just want to make sure that you're, on board. That's okay? Okay. Part 2 will detail the evidence that connects the Odinites to the murders. Tony Leggett concealed this evidence from the judge when Leggett prepared and signed under oath his affidavit for search warrant. This section is long, detailed, and factually dense, especially for those not living and breathing this case. At the beginning of Section 2, Defense Counsel has provided a Delphi murder infographic, a veritable visual representation of the major players mentioned in this memorandum, as well as a list of names and the relevance of those names found in the memorandum. These documents are offered as reference tools for assistance in unpacking these dense facts. Part 3 will detail the information that confirms that Tony Leggett concealed evidence in his search warrant affidavit concerning statements of Betsy Blair and fabricated statements in his search warrant affidavit concerning Sarah Carball. Part 4 will consist of evidence that Odenite corrections officers in leadership have been positioned to watch, guard, intimidate Richard Allen since at least early April 2023. This section will also provide images of the patches that were worn by Sergeant Robinson and Sergeant Jones, as well as images taken from their Facebook pages. Part 5 will include information concerning how Richard Allen became a patsy in this investigation 26 days before an election. This section will include information that Leggett failed to provide in his search warrant affidavit concerning the trustworthiness of Dan Doolin's so-called report. Pat V will also, they have that wrong. They put Pat V instead of Part V and Part 5, but it looked like Pat V because it said Pat. Part 5 will also address the complete lack of evidence that linked Richard Allen to the murders, including an analysis of the weak evidence that Leggett relied on in his affidavit as Leggett, attempted to persuade Judge D that evidence of the murders would be found in Richard Allen's home. Part 1. The crime scene. When members of a search party found the girls in the late morning of February 14, 2017, Abby and Libby had been missing for approximately 22 hours. The scene was ghoulish. Libby was found at the base of a tree with 4 branches of varying sizes intentionally put in a very specific and arranged pattern on her naked body. Libby was positioned flat on her back, with her left arm stretched above her head, touching the base of the large tree. Libby's right hand was covered in blood. Libby's left hand was covered in blood. Blood spots and blood drippings were seen all over Libby's body from head to toe. Libby's right arm was placed along the side of her body. One large tree branch had been placed on her left shoulder. The branch was so long that it extended above Libby's head several feet and below her legs for several feet as well. 2 smaller branches formed a V where her legs joined her body near her genitalia, with both sides of the V extending upward towards Libby's head, with one branch extending to the left of Libby's head and the other to the right of Libby's head. The last of the 4 branches extended across Libby's body on a line from her right shoulder to her left shoulder. The 4th tree branch also connected with the other 3 branches and was placed under both branches that formed the V. Libby's sliced neck was partially covered by the 4th branch. There appeared to be no blood sprayed or dripped onto the leaves or the tree near Libby's head and sliced neck. It appeared likely that Libby had been killed at a nearby tree and then dragged to her final resting place, where she was then positioned before having the tree limbs placed on her in a very specific pattern. The murderers treated Abby very differently. Abby was found just a few feet away from Libby. Her body was not placed parallel to Libby, but rather at an angle with Abby's legs, just a few feet from Libby's legs. However, both of their heads were found a few feet apart from each other. Significant differences existed between how Libby's body was found and how Abby's body was found. Abby was not found at the base of a tree. Abby was fully clothed. In fact, Abby was dressed in Libby's sweatshirt and jeans. No blood appeared on Abby's clothing, meaning that she was likely murdered while naked and then dressed by the murderers after she expired and after the blood had stopped spilling from her neck. Abby's hands were clean, no blood. Abby's feet were clean, no blood, other than blood found around Abby's neck area where the murderers had inflicted the fatal wound, Very little, if any, blood was found anywhere else on Abby's body or clothing. The juxtaposition of the spots and streaks of blood found all over Libby's body with the lack of blood on Abby's body, undergarments, overgarments, is stark. The murderers appeared to have gone to great lengths to keep Abby's body and clothing clean from blood. Abby was found on her back like Libby. However, unlike Libby, Abby's elbows were bent, with her right and left arms placed on her chest. Abby's left hand and arm near the left side of her face, and the right hand and arm near the right side of her face. Also, Abby's left leg was straight while her right leg was bent at the knee. The murderers also placed her bent leg under her left leg. Like Libby, those involved in the murder had placed tree branches in a very specific pattern on top of Abby. The pattern looks very similar to an asterisk, consisting of 3 branches, all joined in the middle. At least one of the tree branches appears to have been cleanly cut by some sort of instrument, like an electric saw, rather than split or broken by hand, indicating that this was a preconceived plan. Above Abby's head were smaller sticks that had been placed over her hair, crudely mimicking horns or antlers. The amount of blood that would be perhaps expected at the crime scene based upon the location of the injuries of both girls was not visible in the crime scene photos. The defense has provided the court with 12 crime scene and autopsy photographs marked as Exhibits 516 as confidential. The photographs support the descriptions provided in the previous paragraphs. In addition to the unusual way the girls were posed, including the stick formations placed on their bodies, another unusual marking was found on a nearby tree. A symbol that looked similar to the letter F appeared approximately 4 feet above the base of the tree. The F was in red color, and later DNA testing showed that the F had been painted on the tree using Libby's blood as the so-called paint. Additional blood spatter was found at the base of the same tree. All the blood at the base of the tree appears to have been Libby's blood as well. The defense has also provided the court with Exhibit 17, DNA documentation supporting the fact that Libby's blood was the source of the F painted on the tree. Said exhibit is marked as confidential. The defense has also provided 2 photos of this F found on the nearby tree, hereinafter called F tree. Exhibits 18 and 19 marked as confidential. Defense is also providing a photo of the F tree from a wider angle for the court to have perspective as to where the F tree is located relative to the bodies. That confidential photo has been marked as Exhibit 20. Under Abby's left lower back, a shoe was found. The shoe is believed to be Libby's shoe. Under the shoe, a cell phone was found. The cell phone was later determined to be Libby's phone. The information was confirmed by the recent deposition testimony of Leggett, Liazenby, and Holman. According to the recent depositions taken of Sheriff Leggett, the famous video of the person that many people call the bridge guy, was found on this phone. Additionally, allegedly found between the 2 girls buried under the leaves and dirt was a single bullet. The defense has provided 2 photos of the shoe and cell phone that were found under Abby's legs and marked them Exhibits 21 and 22. They've been filed confidentially. Also, the defense has provided 3 photos of a bullet purportedly found in the ground between Abby and Libby and marked those photos as Exhibits 23, 24, and 25. It should be noted that as of the date of this memo, the defense has no photographs of that bullet allegedly found between the girls after it was removed from the ground. No photo or video, for example, shows the bullet as it was being pulled out of the ground. No photo or video of the bullet immediately after it was pulled from the ground. No photo or video of all sides of the bullet immediately after it was pulled from the ground. No photographs of the bullet next to a measuring device to show its length. No photos that show what the bullet looked like once it was pulled out of the ground could provide proof that it was the same bullet that ended up in the evidence locker room. Shockingly, in this deposition, Sheriff Leggett admitted that he also has not seen any photographs of the purported bullet taken once the bullet was pulled from the ground. In other words, the only photos that the defense has found in the discovery it has received are of the bullet still buried in the ground. At this time, the defense has no idea if A, photos of the bullet after it was removed from the ground even exist, or 2, the photos exist, but the state has not yet turned these important photographs over to the defense, or 3, the defense has missed these photos in the voluminous discovery. Either way, the defense has asked the prosecutor to please locate these photographs. One man alone completed all these tasks in less than 1 hour and 17 minutes. Leggett says one thing publicly, but another thing privately to his law enforcement friends. Publicly, Leggett has claimed under oath that one single solitary person was responsible for abducting and murdering the girls, Richard Allen. Claiming publicly that Richard Allen acted alone would allow Leggett to continue proclaiming that the murders were not the result of a coordinated abduction and subsequent ritualistic sacrifice at the hands of a pagan religious cult. No. If Leggett continues trying to convince everyone publicly that one man and one man alone, Richard Allen, performed all the tasks, then Leggett must convince others, including the public, to ignore the voluminous mountain of evidence that supports the coordinated efforts of multiple Odinites. However, you will learn later in this memorandum that Leggett's claim that one man acting alone, and certainly not an organized band of cultists, murdered those girls, is actually not something that he, Leggett, believes privately, based upon one-on-one conversations with other law enforcement. Still, to be fair to Leggett's public proclamation under oath, let's test Leggett's claim that one man, Richard Allen, acted alone by reviewing all the tasks that this 5-foot, 4-inch man would have had to accomplish in order to pull off the abduction, ritualistic murder, and then staged crime scene as it was found on February 14, 2017. This man would have had to have been solely responsible for marching Abby and Libby down a steep hill. This one man then would have had to march both girls through the woods for some distance. At some point in time, this single, solitary man would have had to cross a cold river whose depth was nearly 3.5 feet. At this depth, if the water were only 2 feet higher, Richard's whole body would have been completely immersed from head to toe. With the cold river water rising well above his waist, this man, acting alone, has to worry about himself crossing the rushing river while also trying to corral 2 girls, keeping them from running or screaming, knowing that houses were not far away. This man on his own would have had to then march the girls up to the site of the murders, while all 3, because of the depth of the water, were wearing undergarments, pants, shirts, jackets, shoes, and socks that were drenched with water from the river crossing. Once he and the girls arrived at the murder scene, this single solitary person then somehow would have had to subdue either Abby or Libby in rope or some other restraining device in order to have the ability to kill the unsubdued child without fear that the other child would run away or scream. Because of the lack of blood on the girl's clothing, each child would have had to have been completely disrobed before the single solitary man sliced his first victim's neck, so the man acting alone either asked each child to disrobe or he assisted in the disrobing. Trooper Jerry Holman of the Unified Command has confirmed that both girls were naked at one point in time, as Liberty was found at the crime scene completely naked, while evidence showed that Abby at one point in time had her clothes off. Once the girls were disrobed and naked in the middle of the forest in the middle of the day in February, and once he had subdued one of the girls to prevent her from running away, the man acting alone, could finally kill the girls. This man, acting alone, would have had to pull out the ceremonial knife or whatever sharp instrument was used and inflict fatal injuries to the neck of the first child. It is unknown which child perished first. While the second child watched, hopefully without screaming or becoming so hysterical that the said child was uncontrollable. The man, acting alone, would then walk over to the second child, who was somehow subdued, and inflict the same fatal injuries to her neck. The autopsy notes taken by Leggett revealed that the pathologist stated that because of the particular vein that was severed, Abby suffered a slow death. To give Leggett as much additional time to sell this preposterous story that one man committed all of these tasks in a short period of time, we will presume that this one man, acting alone, took Abby's life first and Libby's second, so that he, the lone killer, could efficiently handle all of the other tasks necessary while Abby suffered her slow death. Additionally, even after Abby finally would have died, the man acting alone would have to wait enough time so that the blood escaping from Abby's neck would stop flowing, as there was little to no blood found on any of the clothing Abby was wearing other than around the neck area. Both undergarments and outer garments, meaning this single solitary man, likely clothed Abby's dead body after the flow of the blood ceased. Once this man, acting alone, inflicted the injuries to Abby's neck and she was dying a slow death, he would have left Abby on the ground, somewhere away from where she was ultimately laid to rest. Okay, sorry, something was moving around here. Okay, once this man, acting alone, as she was dying a slow death, he would have left Abby on the ground somewhere away from where she was ultimately laid to rest, as there was little blood at the scene where she was laid to rest and posed, where the man, acting alone, placed sticks on her body. While waiting for Abby to die her slow death, the man, acting alone, would have then used his ceremonial knife or whatever sharp object he used to inflict Libby's fatal injuries at the base of the F tree where Libby's blood was found. While waiting for Abby to die her slow death, and then, while waiting for the blood to stop escaping from Abby's fatal injuries, this man, acting alone, would then grab Libby's body from the F tree where she was probably killed, dragging her to her final resting place at the base of the tree where she was found. While waiting for Abby to die her slow death, and then waiting for the blood to stop draining from Abby's neck, this man, acting alone, then would have to pose and position Libby's dead body in the manner in which her dead body was found at the scene. While waiting for 1, Abby to die her slow death, and 2, while waiting for her blood to stop draining from Abby's neck, the man alone would select a variety of tree branches and sticks with the ultimate purpose of placing them on Libby's dead body. After selecting the branches and sticks, this man, acting alone, would then gather those sticks and branches. After gathering the selected branches and sticks, this man, acting alone, would have to carefully arrange the sticks in the pattern found at the crime scene. And this man, acting alone, would have to take the largest and longest of the branches and, using his dexterity, to lift that large branch over Libby's left shoulder next to her head. Next, the man, acting alone, would have to have taken a smaller stick and place it under Libby's neck on a straight line from Libby's right shoulder to her left shoulder, but over the previously laid out branch that the man, acting alone, had placed over Libby's left shoulder, described in 14a. Next, the man would have to grab one of the longer sticks and place it on Libby's right thigh near her genitalia. The stick would then be placed alongside the right side of Libby, towards her head, but over the shorter stick, discussed in 14c above. This stick, starting near Libby's genitalia, would form the right half of the V, along with the stick discussed in 14d. Next, in order to form what can be described as a V, the man, acting alone, would take another stick, place it on Libby's left thigh near her genitalia, and connect it with the stick described in 14c to form the base of the V. Then, this man would run that stick essentially along the left side of Libby's body over the large tree branch that is mentioned in 14a. This stick, placed on Libby's left thigh, would also connect with, and in fact may even be attached to, as the photo makes it hard to tell, the stick described in 14b. At some point in time, once the blood draining from Abby's neck had stopped, this man, acting alone, would then have to gather the discarded clothing for both girls. This man would then have to redress Abby's dead body, starting with the undergarments Abby was wearing, without leaving any blood, Abby's or Libby's, on the undergarments, except around the neck area where Abby had been mortally wounded. This man, acting alone, would have to use his dexterity to lift Abby's dead body in order to maneuver the first bra onto Abby's dead body. The man, acting alone, would then have to use his dexterity to lift Abby's body in order to maneuver the first bra under her back. The man, acting alone, would then have to use his dexterity to secure this black bra onto Abby. This man, acting alone, would then have to locate the second bra that Abby was wearing. This man, acting alone, would then again have to use his dexterity to lift Abby's dead body in order to maneuver the second bra onto Abby's dead body. This man, acting alone, would then use his dexterity to secure a second woman's bra onto Abby. Once both bras were secured onto Abby's dead body, this man, acting alone, would have to locate the pink sweatshirt that Abby was wearing underneath the sweatshirt. The pink shirt Abby was wearing underneath the sweatshirt. Once the pink shirt was located, the man acting alone would likely have positioned Abby's arms above her head to make it easier to place the pink shirt onto Abby's dead body. Once Abby's arms were positioned above her head, then the man acting alone would have to place the opening at the bottom of the pink shirt just above Abby's outstretched arms. Once the bottom opening of the pink shirt was positioned just above Abby's outstretched arms, the man acting alone would have to use his dexterity by lifting Abby's left arm and placing it into the pink shirt. Once the man acting alone maneuvered Abby's left hand and left arm through the bottom of the pink shirt, he would have to use his dexterity to move Abby's left hand and left arm towards the left armhole of the pink shirt. Once the man acting alone had used his dexterity to maneuver Abby's left hand and left arm towards the left armhole in the pink shirt, he would have had to use his dexterity to pull the left arm through the left armhole of the pink shirt. Once the left arm was successfully pulled through the left armhole of the pink shirt, the man acting alone would have had to use his dexterity by picking up Abby's right arm and placing it in the bottom entry hole of the pink shirt. Once the man acting alone had used his dexterity to maneuver Abby's right hand and right arm towards the right armhole in the pink shirt, he would have to use his dexterity to pull the right arm through the right armhole of the pink shirt. And once the man acting alone had successfully maneuvered Abby's right and left arms through the armholes, then he would have to use his dexterity by using one hand to lift the upper portion of Abby's body while using the other hand to pull the pink shirt towards Abby's midsection until the shirt was properly dressed on Abby. Additionally, the man acting alone while using his one hand to pull the pink shirt towards Abby's midsection would have had to lift Abby's body high enough off the ground to avoid getting any dirt on the pink shirt, as the photographs show that the pink shirt was clean. It is likely that once the murderer redressed Abby in her pink shirt, that the pink shirt never touched the damp, dirty ground, as there was no dirt on that shirt whatsoever, unlike the wet dirt that was found on Libby's backside and the wet dirt that was also found on the sweatshirt Abby was ultimately dressed in. And this would mean that once the man redressed Abby in the pink shirt, that he would have likely held up the upper portion of Abby's body with one hand while grabbing the sweatshirt with the other before placing the sweatshirt on Abby. In order to put the sweatshirt on Abby, once he was able to locate Libby's sweatshirt, then this man, acting alone, likely positioned at least one of Abby's arms above her head, as so to make it easier for this man to put Libby's sweatshirt onto Abby's body. Once he positioned Abby's arms above her head, this man, acting alone, would then have to take the opening of the sweatshirt near the outstretched arms or arms of Abby, Once he positioned Libby's sweatshirt near Abby's arms, this man, acting alone, would have had to maneuver the left hand and arm in order to move it to the bottom opening of the sweatshirt. Once he stuffed the left hand and arm into the sweatshirt, this man, acting alone, would have had to position the right arm into the bottom opening of the sweatshirt. Once both arms had been placed into the entrance of the opening of Libby's sweatshirt, then this man, acting alone, would have had to use his dexterity to pull this sweatshirt down towards Abby's head, likely using one of his hands as the other one was being used to prop up Abby's body so that it wasn't touching the ground, again, as the pink shirt shows no dirt. Once this man, acting alone, started pulling the sweatshirt down towards Abby's head, he would also have to make sure that Abby's left arm and left hand were also being pulled inside the sweatshirt, left armhole towards the hole at the end of the sweatshirt's left sleeve. Once this man, acting alone, started pulling the sweatshirt towards Abby's head, he would also have to make sure that Abby's right arm and right hand were also being pulled inside the sweatshirt's right armhole towards the hole at the end of the sweatshirt's right sleeve. Once this man, acting alone, had successfully guided both the right arm and the left arm into their respective armholes, then this man would have had to use his dexterity to lift Abby's body with one hand, while using the other hand to pull the sweatshirt down towards Abby's midsection, making sure that the sweatshirt was pulled over Abby's head. Once this man, acting alone, had secured the first bra and the second bra and the pink shirt and the sweatshirt onto Abby's dead body, then he would have to have located Libby's jeans, which were found on Abby. Once this man, acting alone, had located Libby's jeans, this man, acting alone, would then have to place the opening of Libby's jeans at Abby's feet. Once he placed the opening of Libby's jeans at Abby's feet, this man, acting alone, would then have to use his dexterity to lift Abby's feet from her dead body enough off the ground in order to start the process of maneuvering Libby's jeans onto Abby's dead body. First, the man acting alone would have had to lifted either the right or the left leg and foot onto the opening of the jeans. Next, the man acting alone would have lifted the remaining leg and foot onto the opening of the jeans. Once he was able to position Abby's feet into the openings of Libby's jeans, this man acting alone would have had to use his dexterity to lift Abby's hips and legs in order to maneuver the jeans up Abby's dead body. Once the man acting alone was able to maneuver the jeans several inches towards Abby's midsection, he would have to continue to readjust by lifting the body with one hand while grabbing the jeans and pulling them towards Abby's midsection with the other hand. And this man, acting alone, would continue the adjustment and readjustment using both of his hands until the jeans were ultimately completely on Abby's dead body. Once this man, acting alone, had successfully completed the task of dressing Abby in the first bra, the second bra, the pink shirt, Libby's sweatshirt, and jeans, he would then have to locate Abby's Converse tennis shoes. Once the man, acting alone, had located Abby's black Converse tennis shoes with white laces, he would have to use his dexterity to lift Abby's left leg with one hand, while using the other hand to place Abby's tennis shoe on her left foot. Once the man, acting alone, had completed the task of placing Abby's left Converse tennis shoe with the white laces back onto Abby's left foot, he would have to grab Abby's other tennis shoe, the right tennis shoe. Once the man, acting alone, had grabbed Abby's right tennis shoe, he would have used his dexterity to lift Abby's right leg with one hand, while using the other hand to place Abby's right Converse tennis shoe onto Abby's right foot. Once the man, acting alone, had placed both shoes on Abby's feet, he would have had to locate the right twig sticks that could be fashioned into antlers, horns. Once those sticks and twigs are found, then the man, acting alone, would have to lay the sticks and twigs over Abby's hair so that they cross and crudely resemble antlers. since there appeared to be no blood on Abby's tennis shoes or other clothing other than around the neck area, this man, acting alone, must have been extremely careful to avoid any blood that came out of Abby's neck as well as Libby's neck. Because the river is very close to the murder scene, this man, acting alone, could have also walked to the river following the cutting of the girls' necks in order to wash and clean the blood from his hands before touching Abby's naked body and before placing the clothing back on Abby's naked body. Another possible explanation as to how Abby has no visible blood on her body or clothes other than near the site of the wound is that the man, acting alone, had hanged Abby on a tree, stringing her up by her feet. This method, consistent with pagan sacrifice rituals found on Brad Holder's Facebook page, would allow the blood to drip out of Abby's neck more quickly and would prevent the blood from desecrating Abby's body, especially if the man, acting alone, were able to hold Abby's arms away from her body as the blood spilled out of her neck. Once this man, acting alone, had successfully completed the task of locating and putting on Abby's tennis shoes, then he would have to identify certain sticks that he would use to place on Abby's body. Now, because at least one of the branches appeared to have a clean-cut end, this man, acting alone, either A, brought out his saw, a saw that he had either stashed at the murder scene ahead of time or had carried on his person as he walked along on the bridge, and then used that saw to cleanly cut the end of at least one of the branches, or B, located the branch with the clean-cut end that he, the man acting alone, had either stashed ahead of time at the murder site or that he had carried with him on his person while walking the high bridge before abducting the girls, or the man acting alone just so happened to have found a branch with a clean-cut end on the ground in the woods. Before placing his 3 hand-selected sticks on Abby's dead body, this man, acting alone, would have to position Abby the way she had been found. First, the man, acting alone, would have grabbed Abby's right hand and bent it at the elbow towards Abby's face so that the arm was resting on Abby's chest, with Abby's right hand near the right side of her face. Next, the man, acting alone, would have grabbed Abby's left hand and bent it at the elbow towards the left side of Abby's body, with the arm and hand resting on Abby's chest, with her left hand near the bottom of the left side of her face. Once the man, acting alone, positioned Abby's right leg and left arm the specific way that he wanted, he would then have taken Abby's right leg and bent it up at the knee. Once the man, acting alone, had bent Abby's right leg at the knee, he would then have taken the bent portion of Abby's right leg below the knee and placed it under Abby's left leg, which was positioned in a straight line. Once the man, acting alone, had positioned Abby's body in a way that he desired, that the man could commence placing the sticks on Abby's body. First, the man, acting alone, would have grabbed the largest and longest of the branches and placed it diagonally from the bottom of Abby's body, beginning below the right leg, over Abby's midsection, and then over Abby's left shoulder. This branch was so long that it covered a few feet below Abby's right leg and a foot or so to the right of Abby's head. Once the man, acting alone, placed that first larger branch across Abby's body, then he would have had to have taken the second shorter stick and placed it on a line, for the most part, between Abby's right and left shoulders and over her neck. Once the man, acting alone, was through placing the stick described in paragraph 75, he finally would have laid the last stick on a line along the left side of Abby's body towards the middle of her head, with all 3 sticks intersecting at the same exact location on the left side of Abby's body. Once the man, acting alone, had finished placing the sticks and branches on Abby's body in the specific way that he desired, he then would have to place the rune on the tree where Libby had likely been slayed. The man, acting alone, would have had to take would had to have taken some of the spilled blood from Libby and dipped his finger or some other type of object into Libby's blood. Once the man acting alone would have dipped his hand or some other object into Libby's blood, he would then had to walk away from the bodies and towards the tree where Libby had been slayed. Once at the tree where Libby had been slayed, the man acting alone would have taken his finger dripping with blood, or the tool dripping with blood, and would have painted a line, maybe a foot long, straight down the tree trunk, about 4 feet above the ground. And once the straight line would have been painted using Libby's blood, the man acting alone may have had to walk back to Libby's body to dip his finger into Libby's neck, or to dip whatever tool he had into Libby's neck wound in order to have enough blood to finish the rune that he was painting on the tree. Once he dipped his finger or tool into Libby's wound, the man acting alone would have had to walk over to the tree now containing the vertical line of Libby's blood, and that was about 4 feet above the ground, and would have used Libby's blood to paint 2 horizontal lines to the ground to form what looked like similar to an F. Once the painting on the tree was completed using Libby's blood, the man acting alone would now locate certain clothing items that he did not place on Abby, but were still on the ground, including Abby's jeans. And once he located those certain clothing items, he would gather them up. Once the man acting alone gathered the remaining clothing items, he would leave the immediate area and around the crime scene and walk to the river. Once the man acting alone reached the river, he would toss these clothing items into the river. Once the man acting alone had thrown the clothing items into the river, he would have to walk back up to the crime scene and canvass it to make sure there was nothing left behind. Once the man acting alone made sure that that he left nothing behind, including his DNA, hair, fingerprints, and shoe prints, the man would be able to leave. Once the man acting alone was able to leave, after exerting all the energy needed to complete all of these tasks, he would have to walk up a steep hill for several hundred yards through some thickets and brush until he was able to get to the road 300 north. Although this man acting alone was somehow smart enough to keep his DNA, fingerprints, footprints, hair, and other evidence out of the crime scene, this man acting alone was apparently dumb enough to decide to walk down 300 north in the middle of the day, headed west, easily visible to the public and easily visible to anyone driving a vehicle on 300 north like Sarah Carbo. Once the man acting alone was able to make his way onto 300 north to walk down the road in broad daylight, open to the public rather than in the woods under cover, this man then walked some distance westbound on 300 north before allegedly being spotted by Sarah Carbo at 3:57 p.m. One man, 5 foot 4 inches in stature, handled all these tasks, from the abduction of the high bridge to the crossing over the cold flowing river, to the subduing of one girl while the other is killed, to the killing of the second girl, waiting while Abby died a slow death, then clothing Abby with very little to any blood transfer on said clothing, to the arrangement of the sticks into the ruins, to the painting of the F on the tree, to the throwing of the clothing items into the river, to the departure from the crime scene, and finally to traversing hundreds of yards through the forest and up a steep hill, and then another 100 or more yards until finally reaching 300 north. All of the while being so careful as to not leave any DNA or other forensic evidence behind. Were all these acts committed by one man acting alone? All these things occurred between 17 minutes and 1 hour and 17 minutes after the girls heard the phrase, "down the hill," at approximately 2:13 p.m. Again, not plausible. At his August 8, 2023 deposition, Sheriff Leggett was adamant that one person and one person alone, Richard Allen, was involved in the murder of Abby and Libby. However, off record, Leggett doesn't believe that one man was capable of pulling off all of those tasks, especially in such a short period of time, leaving behind a crime scene with no forensic evidence. As referred to earlier, Leggett said one thing publicly under oath, but a different thing off the record to his buddies. One of those buddies is former sheriff and now chief deputy sheriff Toby Liazenby. The day after Leggett's August 8, 2023 deposition, Toby was subject to a deposition. When Toby was asked at his deposition how many people he believed were involved in the murder of Abby and Libby, Toby provided a different answer than Leggett. Toby indicated that at least 2 people were involved. The reason Toby gave us as to his belief that at least 2 people were involved in the murders was Toby's belief that it would have been difficult for any individual to accomplish what occurred. For one individual to accomplish what had occurred. When asked if any other law enforcement officers shared this perspective, Liazenby provided a surprising answer based upon what Leggett had testified to under oath the day before. Yes, at least one other law enforcement officer believed multiple people were involved in the murder of Abby and Libby. Tony Leggett. According to Liazenby's sworn statement, it was common for Liazenby, and Tony Leggett to have one-on-one conversations, and that Tony Leggett definitely believed that more than one person was involved. Tony Leggett, who just the day before under oath claimed that only one person, Richard Allen, was involved in the murders, privately behind the scenes was saying something altogether different in one-on-one conversations with his law enforcement friends. If a cult consisting of more than one person in a coordinated fashion lured the girls to the bridge, abducted the girls, and then collectively were able to perform all the tasks mentioned in the previous paragraphs, that perspective would cut against Leggett's sworn statement that the murderer acted alone. Conversely, even more problematic for Leggett is that stating under oath that what Leggett actually believes, that more than one person was involved in the murders of Abby and Libby, would then lend credence to the fact that the accumulation of evidence gathered by Murphy, Ferenczi, and Click strongly supports that on February 13, 2017, several men from a pagan religious cult were involved. For some reason, Leggett is obviously not interested in wanting anyone, including the judge, to know that the evidence strongly supports an organized pagan cult as being the killers. Therefore, sadly, it is not surprising that Leggett lied under oath when he claimed in his deposition that only one man acting alone murdered those girls. If Leggett had told the judge that Leggett believed that multiple people were involved in the crime, and if Leggett also provided the judge with the massive amount of missing details of the Odenite involvement in the murders, including evidence of the Odenite's intimate knowledge of the crime scene, then there is no way the judge would have or should have signed the search warrant. The court will be considering whether Leggett intentionally or recklessly concealed information and intentionally fabricated facts in his affidavit for search warrant. Leggett's duplicity under oath about the number of people he felt were involved in the murders is just one of many reasons to support the belief that Leggett intentionally concealed evidence and fabricated other evidence in his sworn affidavit. Okay, that was part 2. Wow, that was long. Let me just get a drink here. I'm sorry, that was not part 2. This is part 2. I am very, very sorry. They said part 2 was long, right? Okay. Guess they didn't consider that long. What is Odinism? For Rick's defense team, it has been hard to gain a grasp on exactly how to define Odinism. A March 15, 1998 article found in the winter issue of Southern Poverty Law Center's Hereinafter SPLCA Intelligence Report identified as the nation's preeminent periodical monitoring the radical right in the U.S., said this about Odinism in 1998. A neo-pagan religion drawing on images of fiercely proud, boar-hunting Norsemen and their white-skinned Aryan womenfolk is increasingly taking root among skinheads, neo-Nazis, and other white supremacist groups across the nation. Asatru leaders have opened prison ministries in at least 5 states recently, and that many jailed followers are heavily white supremacist. A leading proselytizer, imprisoned terrorist David Lane has been writing prolifically and influencing many to adopt his racist interpretations. Bob Matthews, the late founder of the order of which Lane was a member, adopted a series of related beliefs. A Denver skinhead who confessed to the November murder of a man because he was black bears an Asatru tattoo. Some key Asatru leaders have no neo-Nazi or anti-Semitic backgrounds. Suddenly, says Phil Rodriguez, a gang investigator with the Arizona State Prison System, Asatrus become the new big fad. Asatru, an Icelandic word meaning belief in the Aesir or gods, has been officially recognized as a religion in Iceland since 1972. Further down in the article, the SPLC states the following. Odinism, which is closely related to Asatru, was much favored in Nazi Germany. Its Nordic Teutonic mythology was a bedrock belief for the key Third Reich leaders, and it was an integral part of what initiation rites in cosmology of the elite SS, which supervised Adolf Hitler's network of death camps. Decades later, Odinism also influenced George Lincoln's Rockwell's American Nazi Party. In addition to the white supremacy component that assists with Odinism, there seems to be an additional dark demonic component to Odinism, at least if articles concerning Odinist human sacrifice and imagery found on the internet, coupled with imagery and language found on Brad Holder's Facebook page, are to be considered. As an example, the defense has attached Exhibits 30 to 34. Exhibits 30 to 31 were found on the internet. Examples, Exhibits 32, 33, and 34 are different versions of the same image that Brad Holder posted on his Facebook page. As you can see, law enforcement wrote the words, painting by Brad Holder, Odin hanging from World Tree on Exhibit 34. This appears to be something that law enforcement would have used in a PowerPoint presentation. Additionally, Kevin Murphy, who was the state trooper that investigated the Odinist angle, said this about Odinism. It seemed to me to border on an almost satanic type of worshiping, sacrificing, but I couldn't really wrap my head around it. Example 30 is an image from a website on Odinism of a man hanging upside down from a tree whose has been sliced in the neck with blood dripping to the ground. The man's arms are posed similarly to Abby's at the crime scene. The man's legs are posed similarly to Abby's at the crime scene. His left leg is straight, his right leg is bent at the knee. The only difference is that the man's right leg is placed under the left leg, while Abby's right leg was posed under her left leg. Exhibit 31 is an image from a website on Odinism of a man wearing antlers similar to the crude way in which the sticks were formed on Abby's head. Example 31 also resembles the crime scene in that the man's left leg is straight while the right leg is bent at the knee and placed under his left leg just like Abby was found. Both exhibits, 30 and 31, were found on the internet by Ryan Boucher during his internet research. The defense included exhibits 32 and 33 in the event that the court might think something like, well, just because those images are available on the internet concerning Odinism has nothing to do with Brad Holder. Exhibits 32 and 33 are image that the defense located in the state's discovery. Both exhibits are the same image, with 34 being a close-up version. The image itself is a painting produced by the hands of Brad Holder. As the court can see, Brad Holder painted what the defense would call a very creepy serial killer looking image of a naked man hanging from a tree. Holder's painting is similar in appearance to exhibits 30 and 31. Also, in Holder's self-made painting, you can see that just like Abby, the hanging man's right leg is bent at the knee, angled towards the man's straight left leg. Again, an overly inquisitive man down in Georgia, Ryan Boucher, began piecing all this together without even having the benefit of the crime scene photographs. Yet the unified command, with the benefit of the crime scene photographs, apparently either incompetently or intentionally failed to piece together these images, which would have caused any curious investigator to continue pursuing Brad Holder as a suspect. Ryan Boucher's curiosity led him to continue his research into runes and Odinism. Boucher's research led to an article that is a primer for the Odinist sacrifice. The defense has attached this article by Daniel Bray, entitled Sacrifice and Sacrificial Ideology in Old Norse Religion. Within Bray's article, he discusses the history of human sacrifice to Odin that exists in the pagan Norse religion. Unified Command claims that Odinism was ruled out early because of the findings of a Purdue professor. However, Unified Command now claims that it can't remember the name of the Purdue professor. Early in the investigation, one of the investigators viewing the crime scene thought that it might be the work of the Odinists practicing Odinism. Unified Command's Jerry Holman has forgotten which investigator it was. Early in the investigation, based upon the thought that Odinism may explain how the bodies were found and how the sticks were arranged on top of the girls, Unified Command sought out an expert. The expert was being sought in order to consider which the crime scene was indicative of Odinism or some other cult. According to Holman, Sergeant Steve Buckle of the Indiana State Police was in charge of locating the expert. Allegedly, the expert that Sergeant Buckley found was from Purdue. According to Holman, Holman doesn't know the Purdue professor's background, but he studies the Norwegian Nordic culture that Odinism is. Holman admitted that Holman has never talked to the Purdue professor. Holman stated that Sergeant Buckley knew the Purdue professor's background, and further that Sergeant Steve Buckley was in communication with them. According to Holman, the professor was out of the country at the time, and we did not release the photos, but we released a sketch of the sticks, how they were laid, and some other information. Having reviewed everything, the professor concluded that it was not Odinism or any type of cult worshipping of any type of a group that would have conducted that crime. However, Jerry Holman told a different story to Trooper Roland Purdy concerning the conclusions of the Purdue professor. Trooper Purdy began assisting with the investigation in March 2007. However, the first time that Purdy even heard the word Odin or Odinite was at least in May or June. It was also important to note that this was the first time that Trooper Purdy had heard the word Odin or Odinite wasn't even through Unified Command or any law enforcement officer, but rather through Becky Patty, who is Libby German's grandmother. Becky Patty, while talking to Trooper Purdy, informed Purdy that Abby Williams had dated Holder's son, Logan, and that Logan's dad was an Odinist named Brad Holder. This information interested Purdy, who then talked to Holman, and Holman told Purdy that they had already run the stick formations and Odin angle through the Purdue professor. Holman told Purdy that the results from the Purdue professor were kind of inclusive. Purdy also believes he was provided a copy of what Purdue University had provided them. Upon reviewing that, Purdue report, according to Purdy, the Odenite angle was not dead. In other words, Holman did not tell Purdy that the report did not claim that Purdue conclusions were that it was not Odism or any other type of cult worshipping or any type of group that would have conducted the crime. Holman has told one story to Purdy and in yet another story under oath in a deposition as to what Purdue's professor's conclusions were concerning Odism involvement in the murders. The difference between concluding that Odinists and cults did not commit the murders versus that the evidence is inconclusive as whether Odinists were involved in the murders is significant. In the first instance, such a conclusion could theoretically explain why law enforcement stopped pursuing the Odenite angle. In the second instance, law enforcement would presumably continue to pursue the Odenite cult angle based on the stick formations, the girls' bodies positioning, and the F painted in Libby's blood on the tree, as well as the other strong evidence supporting an orchestrated abduction and ritualistic murdering of the girls. As stated earlier, both Liansby and Leggett privately believed more than one person was involved based upon how much work was needed to leave the crime scene the way that it was found. However, if the Purdue report concluded that a band of Odenite cultists were not involved, and then arguably it could be the work of one man. It is very telling that Trooper Purdy had been working as an investigator on the case for at least 2 months, March to May 2017, before ever hearing the word Odin or Odenite. The fact is evidence that Odenite angle was abandoned before Purdy became involved in the investigation. In March of 2017, the point can't be emphasized enough. The Odenite angle was abandoned by March 2017, only a few weeks after the girls were murdered. The reason for this abandonment: a Purdue professor had reached a conclusion concerning Odinism and the crime scene. Of course, Holman tells one thing under oath about that conclusion: Odinism and cults were not involved in the murders, and another thing to Purdy: the results were inconclusive. A report may or may not exist that does not rule out Odinism. The best thing to do is to figure out which version of Holman's story to believe, if either, is to go straight to the source, the Purdue professor, and to read the report that the Purdue professor prepared. The problem is that, as of the filing of this document, the defense has been told that the Unified Command cannot identify the professor, and therefore can't locate the professor, and in the end, may not ever be able to identify this mysterious professor. Additionally, the prosecutor has not provided the defense with any Purdue report. Presumably, if the state of Indiana had such a report in its possession, then the identity of the mysterious professor would be revealed. The only conclusion is that the Purdue report is missing, just as the author of the report is also missing. It is unknown if Detective Holman is currently searching for the mysterious professor. If so, he will probably never be found because of the incompetence surrounding the investigation and the complete inability to conduct a comprehensive review of all facts and circumstances pointed to the involvement of multiple actors in this case. To summarize, the crime scene is chock full of signs of cult involvement. At least one law enforcement officer believed that the cult involved may be the Odinites. Therefore, very early on in the investigation, Unified Command claims to have found an expert from Purdue. The expert from Purdue, according to sworn testimony of Jerry Holman, dismisses Odinism and cultism as being involved. The investigators move on from Odinism to the degree that when Trooper Purdy got involved in the investigation in March of 2017, He, Purdy, never even hears the word Odinism, or Odinite, uttered by anyone in the unified command. Rather, Purdy hears Odinism for the first time in May or June from a fact witness, Becky Patty. Now this mystery professor can't be found. 2 young girls were brutally murdered, and an innocent man sits in Westville being mentally abused by Odinite guards, and Detective Holman can't even identify the Purdue professor that caused the abandonment of the very likely source of the murders. It's very difficult to put into words the level of incompetence, or worse, the level of intentionality on display. It would be utterly laughable if the consequences of this dereliction of duty didn't involve life and death. The life of Richard Allen and the deaths of Abigail Williams and Liberty German. These are the facts that greatly undermine the credibility of the entire investigation and are an embarrassment to the greater law enforcement community. As stated previously, when determining whether a Franks hearing should be granted, the girls will be determining whether the actions of Tony Leggett, as alleged by the defense, were intentional or reckless. Surely, a missing Purdue professor and missing report would qualify as either intentional or extremely reckless conduct. Luckily for Richard Allen, Detective Murphy was thorough and organized enough to document in great detail his findings on the Odin triangle of the investigation. Enter the Odin report. It seems only prudent that the court would review this report in its entirety before reading the remainder of this memorandum. Okay. Hang on for 1 minute. Take a look at what's going on here. It's 3:23. Are you guys? Okay, so hello, hi Deputy. I'm parched, yeah. So what are you thinking so far? Hi, Adventures with Beth. What do you think about this? Okay, I'm going to put up a poll. Let me put up a poll, it's easier. Hold on, I'm just trying to put up a poll. Put up a poll. Doesn't want me to put up a poll, it's so bad. Oh my goodness, I can't. Okay, now it's not letting me interact with you. Okay. Okay, let me just do something. Hang on 1 second. Okay, so I have to just fix something here.